Hey folks, good to have you here. We'll get started in about 5 minutes. All right, Aroni folks, welcome to the stream. Hey, Jochin, hi. Check in, yeah. I'm not that fancy. I don't have any bots on my stream or anything like that. At least not yet. Maybe someday. There's a lot to learn here. Yeah, good to have you. I imagine, oh, hey, Champo. Hi. Hey, Relax 3. Hey, hi, good to have you here. Yeah, so I imagine, turnout might be a little low tonight, given that everybody's kind of head down in the homework. But I figure, it might be fun just to build something that's not homework. We're learning all this new stuff, all these arrays. We're going kind of really like deep into arrays and sort of more abstract concepts than what we've done before. And I'm just thinking, sometimes it can be hard to get enthusiastic about this kind of thing if you don't know any of the ways it can actually be applied to build something real. And so that was kind of part of the purpose of trying to do this Wordle game tonight. So I hope you find it entertaining and maybe a little distraction from all the stuff we're doing. But also we're going to be, as we go through this, we're going to be seeing a lot of the array concepts, and we're going to kind of point at them and go, hey, you recognize that? And hopefully it kind of helps connect the dots a little bit with how we can use the concepts that we're learning to do real stuff. So with that being said, we are going to be working off of a tutorial tonight. I did not, everything we're doing tonight, this is not my own work. This is a tutorial that you can freely find, and I'm perfectly happy if you want to code along with the tutorial while I'm talking. I'm gonna get my screen going here. Change to gameplay. And there we go. Yeah, so we're going to be using a free code camp tutorial tonight, and we're just going to be going through it and talking about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and what effects we're doing is going to what effects the stuff we're doing is going to have on putting the game together. Okay, so I'm going to share the link in chat so you all can go there and check it out. Yeah, Rascal, exactly. That's what I really like, is turning all the abstract theories and concepts into real applications. And I'm just sharing the link in chat. You can go there if you want, or you can just watch. It's totally fine either way. Yeah, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I'm kind of the type of person where I have a really hard time with just learning theory if I have no idea how it's going to be applied. I have a real hard time, like, in college when you're hearing theories about all sorts of things, and it's like, okay, yeah, but what does this have to do with anything, And so I love it when I can take something like this and build something with it, and because that makes me a lot more engaged with the material. So that's what we're going to do. And also, apologies in advance if there's any background noise from my laptop fan. As I mentioned on the last stream, my laptop fan is broken, and it likes to suddenly burst into loud rattles occasionally. So let me know if that happens, and I can mute for a second and smack it until it stops. That's what I got to do. But just let me know. Okay. So we're going to try with this sort of split screen layout, so as we go through the tutorial, you don't get lost and you can kind of stick with the material and where we're at in it. Let me know, can you guys, if I type some text in here, this is some sample text. Can you guys see this okay? Or does it need to be bigger? Oh, hey T, how's it going? Good to have you here. Bigger? Okay. Let's see. Got a couple biggers. That's fine. We'll see if I can make this all fit in on one screen. I wonder, I bet I could probably change the font size instead of just zooming in. Hey, Christy Joy. Hey, good to have you. Good to have you. Let's see. Wonder if I have to go to the command palette for that. Editor font zoom in. That didn't do anything. Oh well, that's fine. I can zoom in a little bit. It might just look a little wonky here, but make this a little smaller maybe. Okay, we'll try this, see if it works. Does that look better for the folks that wanted it a little bigger? I think that's about as big as I can actually go. I know some folks are using tablets or mobile devices, so I want to make sure you can hopefully see it. Yeah, good. Okay. It's Greta. Good to know. Okay. Yep. All right. And then the last thing before we get started, for anybody that, good. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the feedback for how it looks on mobile. That's good. Good to know. For anybody that caught the last VOD, I apologize. There's a little bit of random audio at the very start. It didn't interfere with, it only interfered with the countdown, but I was messing with playing system audio at the start of my stream, and y'all got about 10 seconds of Mystery Science Theater 3000. So if you're wondering what that was, it was the end of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not sure what I'm talking about, that's probably because I've edited the video prior to posting. So yeah, sorry about that. Won't happen again. All right, that's all for now. Let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so building a Wordle clone in JavaScript. Now, what is Wordle? We went over this a little bit in last stream. Hey, Tim Tom. But Wordle is a word game that's pretty popular right now. It's the current trend. And it's fairly simple, actually. So this is a version I already built called Blurkle. Works exactly the same. And what you do is you get 6 chances to guess a 5-letter word. And there's an on-screen keyboard that you can use to type, or you can just type straight into the squares. So the word is pre-selected, and you basically just start making your guesses. So if I guess plate and I hit enter, that guess is judged. And then all of the letters that are wrong are colored dark gray. And then there's 2 options for letters that are correct. So if a letter is correct, let me try to get a yellow one here. Oh, of course, I'm not going to get one. Gosh, I'm not getting any yellow letters. Well, if a letter is correct but in the wrong place, it will turn yellow. But if it's correct and in the right place, it will turn green. And so in this case, the E is in the correct place, and so it's been turned green. I'm going to try to get a yellow one here just to show you. Normally it's really easy to get yellow ones, but hey, stream luck, right? Let's see. There we go. Got a couple yellows there. Okay, so essentially what it does is it evaluates against the word, says is the letter right, but it's in the wrong place, then it's yellow. And then if I run out of guesses, I'm just going to say, let's see if I get this right. Nope, that's wrong. And then I'll probably run out of guesses here because I'm not thinking very hard. That's not a word. Okay, oh, there we go. The right word was dirge. Okay, so you missed it there, but after I enter the last word, it says you're out of guesses, and then it gives you the right answer. So that's essentially what we're going to do. We're just going to build this whole thing. And yes, thanks, Rascal. That wasn't a mistake. It's an exclusive feature you can only get by tuning in here on Twitch. Yes. Clips of Mystery Science Theater 3000 accidentally inserted at random moments. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started on this. And this is kind of cool because we're going to make use of some of the array concepts that we've been learning in class. But not only for just like the mathematical stuff, like not only just for like the checking, checking the entries to see if they're right. We're also going to use loops and some of the concept we've been using in class to help us do formatting and help us even just build the basic structure of the page, of the layout, which I think is really cool. So we get a little taste of a lot of things here. But anyway, so we can kind of skip this first part here, but let's go to the how to build the Wordle clone section. So the steps we'll be taking to build the clone. So we'll do a little bit of basic setup, get our basic files created. Then we'll build the game board. So where the entries are going to sit, so, sort of like the visual stuff. We'll create the on-screen keyboard. And, after we create this, it's all just going to be basically just, HTML, CSS. Came for the mistakes, you stay for the features. Yes. Absolutely. That's a good mentality to have. We're going to create the game board, create the on-screen keyboard, and then after we've created the visual stuff, we'll work on accepting user input. And when we say accepting user input, there's kind of a couple sub-steps to that, right? Because we know that if you give 1,000 people a game and very clear instructions on how to use that game, you're probably going to get, 100 people that are going to just mash their keyboard with their face and just try to put in random stuff, not read the instructions, hit weird buttons. So we have to do some validation and parsing of that user input to make sure that it's correct, despite, whatever the instructions might say. So we're going to parse the input first, and then after we've determined that it's good, valid input and what type of input it is, then we can actually validate the user's guess and give them that feedback. The yellow, enter the letters, give them the yellow and green, right? So, it's important to kind of think about that whenever you're writing something that does accept, fairly free user input, is that you got to validate it and you got to sanitize it. And that can be crucial for security as well when you start getting into more advanced stuff. Little Bobby tables. You don't want to allow input that could be malicious to other things that you might not expect. So we're going to accept user input, and there's a step here about adding notifications, and the notifications that we're going to add are just going to be your standard alerts like we saw when I played the game, that are just going to pop up from the top, that we've all done a bajillion times before. There's some stuff in here about porting in some additional features and stuff like that, some animation libraries. We're not going to bother with that because I really just want to focus on the concepts. So I'll be clear about what part we're skipping when we get there. The next part is we're going to make the on-screen keyboard generate input. So, most people play the game, I think, by typing, just directly in the boxes. But for those of you on mobile, you might want to be able to click the letters, with your thumb, right? And make them generate input as well. So we're going to wire up the keyboard so that it generates input. And then we're going to skip the last step of adding animation. We're not going to bother with that. So any questions before we get started? Going to take a quick hydrate here. All clear. Awesome sauce. And hi, Ray Anthony. Good to see you. Okay, so project setup. We're going to need to, set up a folder. So I've already set up a folder here in VS Code, and I've got my, I've got my basic index, my HTML file. I've got a file called script.js. This is where the primary script is going to go. I've got my CSS file called style.css, and I've got another one called words.js. And we'll get to what that is when we get there. But if you want to just set up your basic structure, you can. And then also, because of the way this project is constructed, it's going to require live server in VS Code to be installed in order to run properly. If you try to run it just directly from the index file, opening the index HTML file in your browser, it's not going to work. Chrome is going to stop it from running because we are going to be importing basically an array. We're going to be importing an array from a separate JavaScript file, and Chrome doesn't like that. It stops the execution. So if you have live server enabled, you can turn it on. And we'll need to use it for this project. If you don't, it's pretty easy installation. You can just search for it in the extensions for VS Code. If you don't want to enable it, that's fine too. You can always just follow along with what I'm doing. Yeah, so unfortunately it is required. And it's kind of too bad that it says that you need it here in the instructions, but it doesn't say why. It just says this step is optional. But no, it's really not. Chrome will stop the execution. So unfortunately, you need to have it. And you don't, like, I mean, I didn't do it this way. It says install live server by typing in your terminal npm install live server. I didn't do it that way. I just searched for the extension in VS Code and it brought it right up. So up to you. All right, so let's get started. So HTML setup. So the basic HTML that we're going to use is pretty simple. Should we be live now or when we run the program? We're going to get some basic setup done and then we'll go live. Because right now if we were to go live, there'd be nothing to display. So we'll wait until at least we have the basic. We're going to wait until, I'm going to wait anyway, until I have the basic page structure set up and we have something to display. Yeah, no problem. There's no harm in going live sooner though. You just won't see anything. So we're just gonna grab our basic header here. You can use the standard one from the template. That'll be fine. Grab our header. Ooh, that's not gonna look good. Let's see. I gotta enable word wrap. Hang on. There we go. Okay. All right, and then we're going to have our title. And obviously you can copy and paste. There's no harm in that. But like Leon says, even if we don't know what's happening, it's good to, type this stuff out when you can. So I'm going to type a lot of this out and kind of talk about it as I'm doing it, but it's up to you how you want to do it. You get your fingers, better at doing this stuff as you go. Head, okay. And then we finished the header there and we're going to do our body, and we're going to notice that the body is very simple, and you're going to be like, wait, don't we have a lot of like sections and stuff that we got to put in here? And yes, we do, but we're not going to be the ones generating those sections. So we're going to do an H1 here. We're going to call it, I'm going to call this one Blurtle. And then the only other thing we're going to do right now is just a section or div or whatever called game board. So you can call this, you can make this a section. I'm just following along here and making it a div because that's what the tutorial is doing. But totally up to you. Doesn't make a difference either way. I just don't want to get confused. All right, and this div is going to have the ID of game board. And then we got our body, and then we're going to close our HTML. Okay, cool. All right, so that's all we need to do there. And yeah, so we've created a header for our game, and we've made the container for the game board. Now, the next paragraph says we're going to be using a JavaScript library called Toaster. We are not. For our version of the project, we're going to ignore that. And we're also going to ignore the CSS Animate library. We haven't really gotten to this kind of stuff yet in class, and I just want to keep things simple. They are not required. They're just flashy animations. So you can put them in, you could ignore them. I'm going to ignore them for this tutorial. So we're going to ignore this little thing about adding extra links in the header. And we're going to ignore the extra scripts that they want us to put in the body as well. We're going to ignore those completely. Okay, so now let's go down to the setup section. And now we are going to start initializing some variables. So we're going to move to our script.js folder, and we're going to start declaring some global variables. And I'm going to declare the variables first, and then we'll talk about what this import thing means. So let's do the variables first. So the first thing we're going to declare is our number of guesses. Now, you'll notice that this is capitalized. Number of guesses equals 6. Okay. Now, does anybody remember why this is capitalized? This was almost a throwaway line in like one of the very first readings we ever did. I'm just curious if anybody remembers. Yeah. Yes, you got it. Good job, Sheila. Nice. Yeah, because we know what this value is going to be already. It's not something where like we declare it as 0 and then it's going to count up some or count down or change. Like we know that the very nature of Wordle is that the user gets 6 guesses. Yeah, and because it's a global constant. Yeah. And so like what Sheila was saying is like it's a constant. We're setting that value instead of arriving at it via some other way. And it does. Constant does define that already. It's more of just a like a semantic type thing. And I think in the very first reading they're like, yeah, you don't have to do this, but it's kind of just standard practice for formatting, I guess. I can't say that I've ever done it, but I just saw that and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that from our reading as a thing. Yes, but constant, as far as execution wise, as far as the way JavaScript views it, constant does define it that way. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So and then the next thing so we declared our number of guesses. The next thing we're going to declare is guesses. Oops. And I can't spell. Y'all will get to know this about me. I'm not a good typer or speller. Remaining. And so we're going to start guesses remaining as setting it equal to the number of guesses. Yeah. And I gotta word wrap this as well. Okay, there we go. So we're gonna start it as equal to the number of guesses, but then that guesses remaining value, since we declared it with the keyword let, so that guesses remaining value is going to change after each guess, right? So it's gonna go down. So the next thing we're gonna do is declare our current guess. Now, this one is going to be, yes, in Rascal, you're right. This is something your work would declare in their style guide, for example, if they do this. Yep, exactly. A lot of workplaces are going to have their own rules and guides for style and formatting as far as code goes. So, some places might say, yes, all constants must be capitalized. Others might be like, nope, do whatever. Every workplace is going to have different rules, but that's absolutely a style guide thing. You're right. So the next thing we're declaring here is current guess, and you'll notice we've set this as an empty array. And so essentially current guess is what we're going to put in here is we're going to be putting the word that we are guessing essentially as it's being guessed. So each letter is going to kind of go in here as an array. So, because that'll allow us to compare individual letters. It's going to allow us to take individual letters and compare them and see what kind of feedback we should give the submitter, the user. All right, so next thing we're going to declare is next letter. And we're going to set that equal to 0. Now, next letter is going to be, in this variable, the way this variable is named is a little bit confusing. If I was doing it, I'd probably call it something different. But in this case, next letter is going to be essentially the index of an array. So if you remember, when we say index of an array, we're talking about basically the slot, the toaster slot, in which a value sits, and that starts at 0. So this is going to be the index of an array starting at 0. And that index is going to change depending on how many letters are in a given guess. So you don't have to remember this stuff right now. We're going to see it a lot, but just kind of giving you a feel for what we're setting up here. The next thing we're declaring is write guess string. And what this is going to, what this is going to do is it's going to look at our word list. So we're going to have a big long list of several thousand words to choose from, because you don't want the user saying the same 5 or 10 words over and over again, right? Like it needs to be something that they're not going to guess right away. So we're going to have a list of several thousand words to choose from, and each time the user initializes the game, we want to choose a random word from that list as the answer. So what this is going to do is it's going to look at this giant array called words, And so our array is going to be called words. And inside that array, we want to choose a random number. So we can do that by using essentially the math.floor and the math.random essentially built-in functions to choose a random word from that list. So I'm going to type this out and we're going to explain how it works. Now, we've seen this before in some of my other streams where we've had to pick random numbers, but we'll go over it again because this is a useful combination to kind of know how it works and what it's doing. So we're going to say math.floor, and then inside of that, we're going to put math.random. Oops, math.random. And there's nothing in there. And then we're going to multiply that by the length of our words array. Now, let's see what this is doing. So it's saying so essentially what this is doing is when we have an array and a bracket, right? We're picking essentially an index value from that array, right? And so that index value is determined by this interior function here. So essentially what we're doing is we're generating a random number between 0 and 1. But an array index is just integers, right? It's integers from 0 to whatever. So a random number between 0 and 1 isn't going to do us any good. So what we do is we take that random number and we multiply it by the length of our words array. So then that's going to give us a slightly smaller, maybe, random number that's within the length of our words array. But it could be a decimal, right? If you multiply, I don't know, 25 times 0.5, you're going to get a decimal, which isn't going to work. And so then we use the math.floor function to round that potential decimal down to the nearest integer. So if we get a decimal, we round it down to the nearest integer, and what we end up with is a random number that is essentially between 0 and the maximum length of our array. So if we return that as an array index, we then get a random word from our array. So essentially what this is doing is it's saying, hey, go grab a random word that is at the index value that we've generated here from our word array. Okay? And this math.random combination, math.floor, math.random times another value, this can be really useful for generating random integers between whatever range you specify, essentially. There's variations that you can do it between, higher numbers or lower numbers, but it can be really useful to know. So that's why I'm just going through it here again. So yeah, that's all the variables that we're going to need. And any questions here before we go into import our word list? And yeah, if you're new to this stream, you don't have to wait until I say, does anybody have questions? You're welcome to ask questions anytime, but I do try to pause periodically just to give people a space to think and formulate any questions they might have. Let's see, a semicolon enter here wouldn't affect things before the console.log. No, I don't think so, but we can try it both ways and see if it causes any problems. Silent Spy, I'm not sure what your question is there. Are you asking if I'm recording? And yes, I am. The VOD will be available on my channel. It starts right when I start the stream, and it goes through the whole stream. It just records automatically. Can you please, okay. Okay. Yeah, and I will explain in just one second. I'm just going to look at the other questions here. Oh, hey, Cranberry. Good to see you. What does, so somebody wanted to explain next letter, and then also, I'm assuming Silent Spy, you also want me to explain, did you want me to explain this one again, the what we're doing here with the math.random, Silent Spy? Was that your question? I just want to make sure I understand. And Cranberry, words.js doesn't contain anything yet. We're going to make it contain something here in a second. So that's going to be the next thing we're going to do. Oh, you're fine, Patricia, no worries. Like I say, the VOD will be available. It's actually available now. It's recording as we speak. Yeah, and as Rascal said, I didn't think the semicolon would affect anything. It is odd that they left it off, which was like, but it should be fine either way. Probably just a typo. Note from starting, okay, so essentially, I'll just give you the Cliff's Notes, Silent. So essentially, we're building the game Wordle, which is a word game. And all we're doing right now is we're just declaring some variables. Now, for those of you that just got here, we're working right off of a free code camp tutorial. And I'm sharing the link here in chat again. So you can go there and you can kind of catch up to where we're at. We're at the JavaScript setup point. So if you want to just kind of scan through that, and then you can catch up with us, anybody that just got here. All we've done so far is we've just basically set up our basic file structure, and we're declaring our variables that we're going to use. And Rascal has shared the VOD. You can also find it on my channel homepage. So that'll be done pretty much as soon as I end the stream, and you can always go back and rewatch the beginning if you need to. So, yep, so check out the link and you can catch up pretty quickly. Okay, so, yeah, and two, we do need to put one more console log at the bottom here of our variables. And the only reason we're doing this console log is we are, just in case something isn't working properly, we want the right guess, whatever the correct answer, we want that to be available to us, not visible to the user, but if we inspect the page, we'll be able to see what the right answer is, just in case we don't feel like we're getting the correct results. And there's been a couple times where there's some weird words in this list, so we'll get there in a second, but it's an odd list. It's hard. I feel like it's harder than the real one. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to import a separate JavaScript file, well, basically a separate JavaScript array that contains our entire word list. So we're just going to put this at the top of our script for now, and then we're going to get the file. So we're going to say import words from .words.js. Yeah. And oops, semicolon should be outside. There we go. Now we're going to actually, but we need to also populate that words file. In JS, you can omit the semicolon in some cases, but generally people just pretend the auto insertion doesn't exist. The semicolon in JavaScript is pretty optional, and I'm pretty bad about being consistent with using it. And Patricia, yeah, I like to console log each step a lot of the time. Yeah, as we're doing these simpler things, or especially if something isn't behaving the way you expect, console logging multiple steps, like inside of if statements and stuff, can be really helpful in determining where things might be not working the way you expect. I've done that a lot. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So let's grab our words file. So in the instructions here, there's a link to the words file, and you can just open it in a separate window or a new tab. It takes you to a GitHub link with, with basically what's a massive array. So there's like 57,000 lines in this massive array, and it's just a bunch of 5-letter words that are valid for people to guess. And so this is going to be what our game is going to pick from. So if you go to the link, you can grab, you can just go to the raw if you want and copy paste the entire thing. I would say just use Control A. So hit Control A to select the entire thing and then copy that. Yeah, there we go. And then just paste that into your words.js file. And you can see now we've got all of the words in 5759. So, and I have no idea what some of these words are in here. It's just the file that the tutorial recommends using. I can't, I don't vouch for any of the words that are in here, whether of their accuracy or, suitableness or anything like that. So just a little disclaimer there. I don't know what's in here, but some of them are pretty hard. So now we've got our words. And so what this is going to do is it's going to, when we need anything from this array, it's going to be able to pull from this separate JavaScript file. And essentially for our little function down here, for our write guess string, it's going to be able to pull from words to grab whatever the correct guess should be. So kind of cool. I hadn't done this before, but like I said earlier, for those who are new, if you're coding along, Google Chrome does not like this importing function, or importing, I don't know what this is even, this concept, this import. So if you just try to run it straight in your browser, like by opening the HTML file and running it that way, Chrome will block it. So what you do have to do is you have to use live server. So if you have live server installed in VS Code, you'll need to use live server in order for this to run properly. So just a little disclaimer there. And the tutorial does specify enabling live server as well. Okay, so we've got our words and we've got our variables. So I think now we're ready to start actually building the thing. And you notice too that at the top of our words file, it says export. So we're exporting words to our import statement here. Okay, now we're going to do a little bit of CSS setup. And it's very, very, very simple, at least for starters. So our CSS for now is just going to be an H1 with a text align, and all we're doing is we're centering the header. So super easy, nothing there, just center the header, and that's all we got to do for now. Mind-blowing, huh? All right, we're going to save words, and we're going to save our JavaScript file, and we're not going to go live until we actually get the game board going, so there's something to see, but we should be good to go for now. Okay, so this just gives you an idea of what your HTML file should look like. Now we did not, there's going to be a couple things missing from here in our version, like the animations and the little extra doodads. We're not going to do those. The game will still function fine without them. So we're just skipping that. And our file structure should look like index, script file, CSS file, our word list, and we're going to be done. They have node modules down here. We're not doing that. Live server setup. Yeah, I'm going to make sure you have live server running. Now we're going to go into creating the game board. So any questions? Oh yeah, thank you for the context there, Rascal. ES6 import/export statements in the browser require a server to work, which is why it's required to use live server. Yeah. So I mean, I guess you could maybe get around that by having that 5,000 word array like at the top of your file, but that just seems like it would be make your file really hard to work with. So I'm not sure the best way around that other than to just use live server for now. But thank you for the context, Rascal, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and make our game board. Now this is where it actually starts to get interesting. So I'm going to scroll down here a little bit, and we're going to make a function. And what this function is going to do is it's going to build our game board for us. Now let's remind ourselves what that board looks like. I'm going to refresh this so it's blank. So our game board is going to look like this. It's going to be, 5 boxes across and 6 boxes high, right? Now we could do this manually. We could declare, we could create a box here and then use flex to copy and paste 6 across, and then, or well, what we should do is we would do, a box, and then we would do 6 rows, and then have 6 or 5 boxes in each row. And it would just be a lot of copy and paste, a lot of borders, a lot of setup, that kind of thing. But I mean, why do that when we could have JavaScript build it for us, right? This is what I think is so cool, is that we're going to start to get into having JavaScript do some of the dirty work for us, the stuff that used to take, a good 5 minutes of copying and pasting. JavaScript can do very quickly and accurately too. So anyway, let's do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a function called Init board. And this function is going to build our game board. And we are going to say let board equal document dot get element by ID. And we're going to grab the game board. Game board. Now, the only thing we've really put in our HTML so far, right, was a div with the ID of game board. So we're going to grab that div. And we're going to assign it to the variable of board. Okay. And then we are also, I have a question about the HTML. They have the game board in a div. Would main be better? Yes, I would say anything would be better than div, honestly. It was kind of disappointing that Free Code Camp is just using divs for everything. Use whatever identifier you want, whatever makes sense to you. I mean, I think in mine I just did sections because I do sections for almost everything. But yeah, I mean main might be better. Do what makes sense for you semantically. Yeah. VD admin, are you saying use a break tag? I'm not sure what you're specifying there. Oh, no problem. No problem, VD admin. Yeah, rascal. Okay, so we've set board equal to essentially our game board ID. And then we are also going to declare a class name, row class, oops, sorry, autocomplete. Stop that. Row dot, I'm sorry, I'm not hitting enter. It's just doing that. Row dot, there we go. I had to hit escape in order for it to stop. That was weird. Row dot class name is going to be equal to letter row. So this is what we're going to call the class that we're going to assign to all of our rows. So, the game board has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. And so that's what we're going to call that. We're going to call it letter row. Okay. So with that out of the way, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. So what are we doing here? So you can see that if you're following along, oh yeah, it's an autocomplete, isn't it? Yeah. I'll try to turn that off later. Thanks for letting me know though. Yeah. An autocomplete setting for period. Yeah, that makes sense. So what do we got here? We've got what looks like 2 nested for loops, right? We've got an outer loop and then we've got an inner loop. Now, what are these guys doing? So if you were able to join my stream on Friday, you might find that this looks a little bit familiar. And I think I mentioned it on Friday too. I was like, hey, look, we're going to use this in our Wordle game. So can anybody tell me what these loops are doing? Does anybody know? This doesn't have to be exact, just a general idea of what these loops might be doing. Looks like we're creating some elements, right? No clue. That's okay. Yeah, you can have no clue. That's a valid answer. Yes, Cranberry, yes. We are creating the rows and columns on the game board dynamically using JavaScript. So what we're doing is let's just walk through this visually before we write it out. So adding box divs to the rows. Yes. Yep. That's what the inner part is doing. So the inner part right here, what the part that I've highlighted here. So what this is doing is you can see that it's doing a for loop. Yes, exactly, Rascal. That's exactly right. This is literally almost the same structure as the chessboard problem in, I believe it's chapter 2 of Eloquent JavaScript, and which we went over on Friday. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. You're getting there. You're getting there, Token. That's right. So let's see what it's doing, right? So the inner loop is looping through, starting at 0 and looping to 5, right? And if we think about it, 5 across is how many boxes we have in a row, right? So this looks like what it's doing is it's generating boxes. And you can see we have a new variable here named box. So it's looping around 5 times and it's creating 5 boxes inside divs. And it's giving those box names a class name. It's giving those boxes a class name of letterbox, which makes sense. That's where the letters are going to go. And then what it's doing is for each box it creates, it's appending that child to a row, right? So it's saying, hey, new box, you're going to sit inside of whatever row you're in. So that's the inner loop. It runs 5 times each time. And then the outer loop is creating the rows, because we can see this one starts at 0 and runs for up to the number of guesses, which makes sense, right? 6 rows, 6 guesses, okay? So it runs 6 times, and so if we were to run this, it would say, okay, start at 0, create a div, give it the class name of letter row, right? Hey, Winchy, good to see ya. So we're giving it the class name of letter row. And then after it creates the row, it puts 5 boxes inside of that row. You know, it's because it's appending them to the row. And then after it's done with that, it's essentially saying, okay, we've created a row, we put 5 boxes into it, and we're adding that row with its boxes to the game board. So thanks. The sunglasses cat is a standard. Yeah, is a fun little standard Twitch emote. I don't have any custom emotes yet, but because I need to be an affiliate for that. But yeah, that was a cute one. So yeah, essentially what it's doing is it's building a row, putting 5 boxes in it, and then attaching that row to the div of the game board that we've already completed. So this guy up here. So all that stuff that we would have had to do, where you do all the manual nesting and you got to make sure that, you know, everything's at the right level and is this thing nested inside this thing, JavaScript can do that all for us. So this is really cool to me. Yeah, so let's put that in there. And I'm gonna copy and paste this part because I just kind of talked through it pretty thoroughly. But if you have questions about why this is working, just for the sake of time, I'm going to copy paste. But if you have questions about what this is doing or why it's working, feel free to ask at any point. So this is our outer loop, right? It's generating our rows, and our inner loop is generating the boxes. Make sure I get this right here. Class name, letter row. Yep. Okay. And we put in our children here, the boxes, and then the last thing we do is we add the row to the game board, and then I need to make sure I get my brackets right. And then the very last thing we do after we've created this is we're going to call the function. So init board. So each time the user refreshes the page, that function's automatically going to be called and it's going to generate the game board. Now, if I were to run this now, if I were to run this JavaScript and generate this live server right now, the page would essentially be blank other than the title. Why is that? So if I were to run this whole thing and do all this, there's nothing wrong with this. We did everything right. But if I were to run this right now, the page would be blank except for the title. Why is that? Anybody know? Yeah, there's no style. Exactly. We haven't added any of the CSS. Yep, no CSS. Yeah, you guys got it. Yep, we haven't added any of the CSS that we need in order to actually make this look like something. So I'm gonna see if I can make this a little smaller. Just there we go. That looks a little better. Okay. So now we need to add some CSS. So this is nothing groundbreaking. I'll still run through it though, because I feel like it's good to review CSS, you know, and make sure we don't forget what all this is. Because we've been so deep in JavaScript for several weeks now, and I mean, other than putting together my portfolio, I haven't done very much CSS at all. So we need a Leon soundboard for It's Only Been X Weeks. Yeah, exactly. Or like a custom emote or something. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm going to type this. So we're going to say for our game board, remember that's our ID of game board. We're going to set the display to flex, and we're going to align the items center. Yep. And flex direction column. Now, what that does is it's essentially telling the flex what direction to what direction to stack the items in. Should it be rows or should it be columns? Now, you might say, wait, the items on the game board, they're in rows, right? Like we're going across, we're not going down. But we'll see in a minute why that is when we look back at our HTML. So now letterbox, that's a class, so it has the dot, right? And in this, we're just doing a lot of formatting. So I'm going to copy and paste this. We're doing some formatting. We're setting a margin. We're setting a font size, font weight, a height and width. So this is just style stuff, right? And then we get into the flex properties. So we're saying, you know, display flex, and justify content is going to be center. Now that's going to be for our letters. You know, our letters are going to be in the center. We're going to align items center. And we're also going to, any text that gets entered in here, this is kind of cool. I didn't know that you could do this. You can transform the text via CSS to be uppercase. I hadn't used this one before, so I thought that was neat. So anything that gets entered in here will automatically be made into uppercase letters. Question, can we set CSS styling through JavaScript code like how you created HTML row, divs, and columns? Yeah, I mean, you can do stuff like I think we've done before, like applying hidden classes, and you know, you can apply and remove classes, and I believe, you know, you can do a certain amount of that. I'm not sure how much you'd I think you want to be careful about how much of that you do, maybe just probably for separation of concerns. I think maybe, you know, you'd probably want to declare this kind of thing in your CSS, and then, you know, apply and remove classes, you know, in the JavaScript, rather than like specifying like what's in a class in JavaScript. But that would be for those who are maybe a little bit more familiar than I am to answer. That would just be my gut feeling though. I apologize. I need to mute for just 1 second and take care of one of my dogs here real quick. Sorry. 3 seconds. Okay, I'm back. I have an old dog, and he sometimes likes to wander around and gets a little confused and then starts to get a little wobbly. So I had to go put him back in another room where he was safer. Yeah, and thanks for asking. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking is like, you know, you want to try to avoid those inline type styles in HTML and CSS, or sorry, in HTML and JavaScript. But yeah, for dynamic stuff, that would seem to make more sense rather than just declaring all your static styles in JavaScript. I'm not sure why you would want to do that, but Hey, Danbull, good to see ya. Welcome. Okay, so we were doing our, so we declared all the required styling for our letterboxes. And then we're going to do one more class here called filled box, which we haven't used yet. But what this is going to be is it's going to just slightly tweak the style a little bit for when the user, when there's something in a box, essentially. It doesn't matter what it is. When there's something in a box, we're going to change the border just a titch. So we're going to say 2 pixels, solid black. Yeah, that's all we need for that one. And then the letter rows are also going to be display flex. So everything's flexing. It's all going to fit. And when she, so it looks like when she's showing us a little bit of how you can declare those types of styles in an inline fashion. Yeah. VD man used by hidden, was it this one? Yeah, that's good catch there. I missed that semicolon. Yep, good catch. Because yeah, with CSS, you got to have your semicolons, right? So it's a little bit of whiplash going from one to the other, where it's JavaScript doesn't care and CSS absolutely cares. Thanks for that. Yeah. All right, so we've got our styling here for our basic game board. Cool. Now, so I did want to revisit. So for our game board, we set the display for flex and the flex direction to column. Now, does anybody know why we can go back and look at the HTML? Does anybody know why we set the flex direction to be column? And actually, that's not going to help us yet because we haven't run it. Oops. Any guesses on why we might have set our game board, which is kind of our top level, and then followed by our rows and then our boxes? Does anybody have any guesses why we might have set the flex direction to column? Because it's going to go game board, rows, and boxes. So the append forces the boxes. So the append forces the boxes to the right. Well, I think in this case, what we're doing is and this will be maybe a little bit clearer after we. That's okay. No problem. I'm bad at flex too, and so it's good to just review this stuff. So let's just let's see. Okay, so flex direction column. You can see I've Googled it before. So let's look at this real quick. So flex direction. So let's look at a real quick demonstration. So flex direction row shows item 1 and item 2 and item 3 lined up next to each other, right? Flex direction column, see what it's doing there? It's stacking them. Now, folks are focusing on the boxes quite a bit, but let's think about how this is going to be structured, right? We're going to have our game board, which is the largest box. So our game board is going to be kind of like this white box here, okay? And then inside of it, we have rows, and then inside of the rows, we have our letter boxes. So what would be the purpose of having flex direction column inside of our game board? What might we want to stack vertically inside of our game board? Vertically is up and down. I'll look at that in just a second, Ray Anthony. Let's answer this question first. Okay, that's fine. It's a little hard to picture without actually running it. So we'll run it and then we'll revisit this question, okay? So we'll run it, we'll see how it looks, and then we'll do an inspect on the game board, and we'll take another look. Okay, so, because yeah, it's hard to picture if we haven't actually run it. Okay, so we'll save this. Whoopsie, sorry. Save. Now, what was the question from Ray? Did you give yourself an extra box or row class name letter box? Is that on the JavaScript? Let's check. This here? On line 12. Row.class name, let's see. Well, I mean, that is, so if we go back up just a little bit, row.class name letter row is in there. Did I put that in twice? Oh, I did. Yeah, you're right. Whoopsie. That's my bad. Good catch. Whoop. Good catch, Ray. Thank you. Okay, there we go. That's better. Awesome. All right, now let's run it. So we're gonna get, what we should see is the basic game board with no keyboard, and it won't have any interactivity yet, but it should at least generate for us. So based on our loops are gonna run, and they're gonna dynamically build the CSS and all the divs and everything that we need in order to make this layout. So let's see if we got it right. So we're gonna go live. Oop, I must have missed something. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Oh, did I save my CSS? Let's see. Nope. Okay, let's find what I missed. So, script. Got that. Did I? Oh, I bet I didn't. I bet I missed putting the CSS. I didn't put the CSS linky thing in there. So let's fix that. All right. So I think I jumped the gun a little bit. Okay, style, let's see, style.css. I don't think I have my CSS in here. Hang on. Let me fix that. Yeah, I don't have a style sheet link. Whoops. That's why. That's the most common mistake that I've found that I make, is that I forget to put the style sheet link inside. So we're going to grab that. I'm just copying and pasting it from up above a little bit. Oh, that's not it either. That's the wrong one. So right under the title, we're going to pop in the style sheet. Now it should work. Okay. Oh, okay, so that centered it. A little closer. Let's figure out what else I'm missing. Okay. Oh, JS link. Yeah, probably not. I probably missed that. Yep, you're right. I didn't put any of the links in. I'm glad you all are here. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I grab the right script. There's a few in here. Yep. So you guys this is good practice, right? It was all a test, right? It was all a test. I meant to do that. It's a feature, not a bug. There we go. Okay, so now we can see that our game board has been dynamically generated by the JS that we wrote. Group active learning and recalling, darn right. Yeah. Okay, so now let's inspect this and let's see. So, I mean, I've got the HTML pulled up right over here, right? The actual HTML that we wrote is dead simple. It's just, this is the only stuff that's in the body, right? But what was generated in the DOM is so much more complex. So let's look at this. And we can see now that our game board can be expanded to have all the rows, and within each row, we now have all of our letterboxes. So now, this might give you a better idea of why we use the flex column designator, right? Because inside of our game board, what we're actually stacking vertically is what? What are we stacking? I'm taking another drink. Not the boxes, not the boxes. I've got, yeah, there we go. Cranberry's got it. We're stacking the rows. Those are vertical. Yeah. Yep, Cranberry's got it. Yeah, we're stacking divs, but specifically what we are stacking is we are stacking the rows. Yeah. No, Cranberry, you got it. You got it right. Yep. And so that's why we said we wanted the flex direction to be vertical, the columns, because in our example, each item here is a row. So we're stacking row 1, row 2, row 3, and we want them to be on top of each other. And then inside of each row, our boxes are stacked horizontally, essentially. So because that's the reason we have that so that's the wrong window. The reason we have that flex direction column was literally because we want to stack the rows vertically inside of our game board. That's why we did that. So flex is tricky. That's why I wanted to cover that, because when you're thinking about flex direction or whatever, it can depend on like what you've got nested and what direction you want things to go in. And so especially if you're putting together a gallery or something, your flex direction might be important depending on how you want that gallery to look. Yeah. So, okay, so we've got our basic game board set up. Ta-da, cool. But obviously there's no interactivity. I can't type. I can't do anything with this yet. So we've got more work to do. Okay. Any questions there before we move on? Now that I got my basic HTML fixed. So we're basically at this point right here. I love how I always seem to, I love how I always seem to end up with like 43 viewers, no matter what. But what's weird is I have like tons of unique viewers too. So it just always averages out. I love it. Mine isn't showing. Yeah. You want to make sure like don't make the same mistake I did. Make sure you've got your links, make sure you've got your style sheet linked, make sure you've got your JavaScript linked. Those are probably the most common mistakes. Can you explain the JavaScript for loop part? Yeah, we can go back to that. Does anybody know why type module needs to be in the JavaScript link? Good question. I don't know the answer. If anybody else knows, feel free to share. Yeah, I don't know what the different possible types are. I wonder if I click on this, if I do this, I wonder if it's going to tell me, try to autocomplete anything. Type. Nope. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what the different possible types are. Seems like a pretty standard script, Copy and paste the link from the free code. Yeah, it could be that you just have a typo somewhere. And then sometimes, just copying and pasting will just fix the typo. Okay, because the JavaScript being used is an ES6 module thanks to the import-export statements. Yeah, we have a little extra something, at the top of our JavaScript here where we're importing, exporting something. And so, yeah, it's a slightly different flavor. Good point. Yeah, it does not show without, yeah. Okay, so it's an ES6 module. Thanks, Rascal. And yeah, so we're getting a little fancy with it here. But yeah, so somebody asked about the for loop. So let's, I'm going to make this bigger just for a minute, because I want to make it very clear what's happening here. So the first thing we're doing is we're declaring a function, init board, which is just basically initializing the board, right? And we're setting the board, essentially we're creating a variable to make this a little shorter. So we're saying, for the element with the ID of game board, we're setting that just to equal to a variable of board. And then we have two loops here. So as soon as we get into this function, it's going to enter this first for loop, and it's going to say, for I less than the number of guesses, this is going to generate our rows. So we want the number of available rows, the number of rows that are available for entry, to be less than, so it's going to start in 0 and it's going to go up to the number of available guesses. So in this case, 6. And for each time it runs, it's going to create a div for the row. And this could be a section, it could be whatever you want. In this case, the tutorial is using divs, so that's what we're using. It's going to create a row, and it's going to give it the class of letter row. Okay, so it creates the row, but there's nothing in that row yet. We know that the game board has 5 boxes inside of each row, right? So we could have 5, create element div, create element div. We could write create element div for each box. We can type that out 5 times. But if we want to be dry, if we want to be don't repeat yourself, then what we're going to do is we're just going to put a second loop inside of here that it's going to loop around 5 times and create 5 boxes inside of our row, right? And it's going to give them the class name of letterbox. And it's also going to nest each of those boxes. That's what it's doing here. It's going to nest each of those boxes inside of that row. Okay, so it's created a row. It's just, it's created one row. And then the very next thing it does is loop 5 times, put 5 boxes inside of that row, put the boxes, nest the boxes inside the row. And the very last thing it does within this for loop is it appends the row to the game board. So it nests the row then inside of the game board. So we put the boxes in the row, then we put the row on the board. Okay? And so that was only one iteration of the loop. We generated one row and everything in it. Now we're going to loop around again and put the second row on. So one row at a time, it's generating the rows, putting the boxes on the rows, and adding the rows to the board. Okay? That's all that's doing. And this is really useful. This is super useful for doing this kind of tedious task where we just want a bunch of boxes. That's all we want. And they all look the same. They all have the same formatting. So why not have our JavaScript do it for us rather than us trying to manually do the nesting and the HTML and maybe getting it wrong and getting something on the wrong level. Let's just put it in JavaScript so it's right. Okay, I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any more questions on that. Let's see if I can put this back down a little bit there. If we wrote our for loop using columns instead of rows, could we do this with the, well, I suppose you could probably do it with columns, but you're going to want to be careful because think about how the game is actually supposed to function, right? When the user enters data, they're going from left to right across a single row. And these rows are going to come into play more as we go. And so you don't want to get out of whack with the actual functionality of the thing that you're building. So technically, yeah, you could do it as columns, I'm sure. But in this case, we want to make sure form follows function. And the function in this case is going by rows explicitly. So probably best to stick with rows on this one. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, Wordle, you enter words on each row. Now this is my completed version. So this isn't the version we've done. This is just my done version. You enter rows, you enter rows, words on rows, and it checks by row. Whether or not it's how close it is to the guess, how close it is to the correct word. And you have 6 chances. Yeah. Yep. So in this case, we want to go by row because that's how the game is going to function. Form follows function. Yep. Good question though. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the on-screen keyboard. Now this part, yeah, a little tedious. Because, the way keyboards are laid out, they're not laid out in alphabetical order. So it's not like we could potentially loop through the alphabet and generate a keyboard that way. Keyboards have QWERTY layout, or unless you're a fanatic and you do, Dvorak or something like that. Most keyboards have QWERTY layout. So we're going to have to kind of just tough through this one and lay it out in the proper way. Also too, if we look at the finished layout, it's got kind of like, you know, a staggered row. So we have the first row is a little larger, second row is a little shorter, third row has a couple of extra buttons there. So we kind of got to manually configure this one. But luckily it is in the tutorial, so we can just copy paste. So that's what I'm going to do. Because I don't want to type all that. I'll probably get it wrong anyway. Watch me get this. I can't see the bottom because it's behind my other screen. Hang on. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's plop this bad boy inside of our, make sure I get it in the right place. We're going to plop it inside of our body, but below our game board. Yeah. So stick that bad boy in there. And, you know, we don't have, these all have the class of keyboard button, but we haven't set up any behavior or styling. Well, did we set up styling for that already? We might have done. Nope, we haven't set up any styling for our keyboard buttons. So if we ran this now, it wouldn't show up because we haven't done anything to format it yet. I think it would just show the letters, right? There would just be letters and rows, but there wouldn't be any sort of, they wouldn't look right. So we plop that in there. We've put it after the game board div. Could you also make the keyboard code into a script module? Probably. I mean, there may be a way to do this programmatically. But the way the letters are ordered, you know, they're in QWERTY layout, and we have sort of a custom number of letters on each row. I don't know. There's probably a module out there that could pre-generate a keyboard for us. I didn't look. In this case, I just copied and pasted. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of doing a little bit of custom stuff here. Like we have a custom enter and delete button. So might be a little difficult to do programmatically. Oh, no, that's fine. No worries. Yeah, it's a reasonable question. Absolutely. So now we're just going to add a little bit of CSS. So we've got our keyboard in there. Now we got to style it a little bit so it looks decent. Nothing crazy. We're going to go down to the bottom of our CSS and we're going to add some styles. And we're going to, so basically the first one is going to be for our keyboard contents. So just generally this ID for keyboard contents, we're going to say, we're going to give it a margin. I'm going to copy and paste these. Now, again, this is, so this keyboard cont, let's go back to our HTML here. This keyboard cont, let's orient ourselves here a little bit. This keyboard cont is the outer box, okay? So this is the whole box that's surrounding the entire keyboard. Now, inside of that box, we have, again, we have multiple rows. We have 3 rows of buttons to click. So we have first row, second row, and third row. So again, you'll see that we are applying flex, and our flex direction is once again column, because we have 3 rows inside of there. And for our keyboard, we have 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, that we want to stack on top of each other. Okay, so that's why we do flex direction column there. And a line item center, where we want to have a center alignment for all of our stuff. Okay. So then inside of there, we have, essentially this is just saying that for the divs inside of inside of our keyboard box, we want them to have a flex display as well. And we're also going to have a little bit of special formatting for the second row of our keyboard. Now let's look at that. For the second row of our keyboard, you can see that it's a little bit indented on either side, right? So we're going to apply just a little bit of a margin there. Wait, is this, I always forget the order. Is that top and bottom or left and right? Does top or bottom or left and right come first when doing margin? That's actually top and bottom, isn't it? I always get it wrong and then run it, and then I have to, you know, switch it the other way. Top and bottom. Okay. Yeah, top, right, bottom, left. Okay, yep. So Yeah, top first, yeah. Okay, so what this is actually doing is it's putting the margin around, like, between the, between the rows here. So it's just applying a little bit of margin so we get a little space between the first and third rows. Yeah. So that's what that's doing. Okay, cool beans. Like I say, I always get it wrong, so thanks for the reminder. Okay, now we're actually going to apply some CSS to our buttons, keyboard buttons. And nothing too crazy here. Font size, font weight, some padding. Again, a little bit of margin, just around because, buttons or divs are really sections or divs or anything. They make themselves, as small as you'll let them be. So in this case, we're having a little bit of margin around the outside of our actual buttons. So we can kind of see that. So, around the actual buttons, we've got a little bit of space there between them, and that's on either side. So I think there's about 4 pixels of space in total there. Yeah. Again, cursor pointer, and text transform. Again, that's a cool thing I didn't know about. We're going to make our text uppercase. Yeah. Anybody know why the keyboard letters are slightly highlighted when hovered, even when no pseudo class of hover is applied? I believe, let's see, why was that? Oh, yeah, because in this case they are actually, let's go back to the HTML here. Are they actually buttons? Yeah, they're actually buttons. So good question. Buttons by their very nature, have a default little bit of default action. So using a button, even if you don't style it at all, when you hover it, it will get slightly highlighted like this. And then it also has a little bit of a default click action as well. So you can see it has a little bit of a blink and a depression, kind of a little bit of change when you click it. Yeah, it's a default. Yep, you guys are all right. It's a default. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Leon doesn't like buttons, but I use them just because they do have these little nice default actions that you don't have to worry about it. They just happen. Yeah, no problem. Okay. So I'm going to save this, and we've got our styling going on. Save that. Now let's see what it looks like now. So yeah, check it out. So we've got a nice little keyboard there. You can see that if I zoom in a little bit, we can see that we do have that lovely little default button action going on. And yeah, you can override those defaults. Absolutely. I've done that a few times where you want to change how they behave. And yeah, you can totally override the defaults, but you got to remember too, maybe that's why Leon doesn't like this, because that's why maybe he doesn't like buttons, because they do have those defaults. And so if you forget about them, they may do something you don't expect. But I don't know, at this point anyway, I like them. But now if we click these, obviously nothing happens because we haven't set up any kind of listener or anything to react when these are interacted with. So we will get there. This is actually going to be the last thing that we do. We're going to set up all the other functionality first, and then we'll hook these up so that they work properly. But yeah, so the basic appearance is looking pretty good. So let's keep moseying along here. Okie doke. So yep, we can tell it looks like this, so it looks all good and correct. Now, we are actually going to start to get to the guts of this. So we're going to start to accept some user input. And yeah, the way this is described is pretty good. It says, the strategy for user input is simple. When the player presses a key on the keyboard, we want to place that key in the right place on the board. So essentially, when the user presses if I press a key on my keyboard, we want to listen for that and then put it in the right row and column on our board. I think Leon doesn't like buttons that should be anchors, like buttons that navigate you to other pages. Pretty sure Leon's cool with buttons that actually do non-navigational actions, such as yours. Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. That's a fair distinction. Yeah, I mean, navs, navs should probably be like, lists inside navs and that kind of thing should probably not always be buttons, but yeah. Yeah, and buttons can do lots of different things. So yeah, if you want to make a distinction, there's several places you could draw that line. Hey, Adrian. Yes, I am on Twitch. It's been going pretty well so far. Yeah, I appreciate that the VODs get recorded automatically and they're available on my channel without all these hardworking people such as Rascal and Mrs. Mar having to do recording and editing and all that stuff. Now it just happens automatically. So yeah, welcome. And I appreciate all the support so far from everyone as well. Much appreciated. Automatically. Yeah, exactly. It is like magic, I swear. Okay, so we can start to, yeah. So I think some folks are making a bingo for me. I'm totally in support. If y'all come up with a bingo card, I'll play. So how to accept user input. So we're listening for key presses, and then we want to make sure we get those key presses. So we listen for a key press, then we have to parse the input to make sure that it's valid input, that I didn't just slam my face into the keyboard in a fit of rage. We want to make sure that we're capturing good input, that it's valid, and then, only then, can we actually start to give feedback on that input. Okay, so when the player presses the key, we want to find out what the key was. And if the key was a single letter, we're going to put it in the right spot on the board. And we can determine what the correct spot on the board is by looking at the number of guesses that are left, right? Because the number of guesses that the user has remaining is what's going to tell us what row we're supposed to be on, right? And then the number of letters in the guess so far is what's going to tell us what box to put the next letter in. So if they're 3 letters into typing a word, we know that the next letter should go in box 4. Okay, so that's the general logic. Whoops, wrong tab. And then also we want to control for if the user wants to check their guess or check their entry, if they can hit the enter key. And if they want to delete a letter, they can hit the backspace key. So we need to control for those as well. So let's get into that. All right, so we are going to go to our JavaScript. Going to get down to the bottom here. So we've initialized the board, and now we're going to go below that, and we're going to add an event listener. So we're going to say document dot add event listener. And we're going to listen. So previously we've really just done like events on like click and hover and that kind of, or mouse enter. I think we've mostly done click and mouse enter, but key up essentially listens for a key press, which is kind of cool. And so we're going to add an event listener, and then on that, when that occurs, we're going to essentially dive right into a function. So we have an arrow function going in there. We're going to pass in a parameter E, which I don't like single letter parameter names, but whatever. And we're going to start our function. Oops, I have one too many parentheses there. My bad. Okay. Make this a little bigger if I can. Overlap a little bit. There we go. Okay. So we've got our event listener going, and now inside of our function, we are going to do some checks. Now all this function is going to do is it's going to check and evaluate whether what the user put in is even valid for us to guess against, or whether it's even valid for us to add to the board. Did they slam their face against it, against the keyboard? Did they hit the shift key? Like what did they even do? So the first thing we're going to check and see if there's any guesses left. If they try to type after they're out of guesses, then we don't want to do anything. We don't want to try to put anything on the board. So we're just going to say if guesses remaining is equal to 0, then we can use return. to immediately exit the function. So essentially this is just going to kick us out and the user is not going to get any kind of feedback at all. So first check, are there any guesses left? Nope. Okay, we're done. And so after that, we're going to say, so assuming there's guesses left, now we're going to actually kind of try to parse the input. So we're going to say let pressed key equals string. So we're going to parse this. We're going to parse the key that they pressed. We're going to parse it to a string. And now we're going to evaluate that string. So if pressed key is equal to backspace, and so if they hit the backspace key, we're going to assume that they want to delete something. But what if they hit backspace, but there's nothing in the row, right? So they hit backspace and they've already they've already backspaced, 5 times and the row is now empty. If they hit it again, they're just mashing keys. Then we don't want to do anything. So we're going to say if the press key was backspace and next letter, so our index of our guess array essentially, is not equal to 0. So if they're not at the beginning of that row, next letter is not equal to 0, only then do we want to delete letter. So now this is going to be a function that we're going to declare in just a minute, but you can probably tell what it does. It deletes a letter. Okay. And so then after that happens, we're going to exit the function because we're done. There's nothing else we need to do. They've hit backspace. And the next key that they press will start this function over again. So each key is going to run this function a new time. So this function is going to run a lot. Okay, so we've returned if press key, and I'm missing some brackets there. Sorry. Okay, there we go. That should work. So we're adding an event listener for the entire page in line 29. Yeah, so essentially all this is doing is it's listening for a keyboard press. Yeah. It's listening. Yeah, that's all it's doing is listening for a keyboard press. So on any keyboard press, it's gonna run the function. Yeah. Now the next thing. So we've done backspace. Now if they press enter, if pressed key is equal to enter. Oops, got to capitalize. I think that's important. Because it's gonna turn our pressed key into a string, and then it's gonna compare it against this string. So it needs to, capitalization is important. Yeah. If pressed key is enter, then we're gonna run a different function, which again we haven't declared yet. It's gonna be called check guess, and then we're gonna exit. And I'm gonna indent these a little bit here. Okay. So we pressed enter now. So these are kind of the specialty keys, right? Backspace and enter are they do different stuff. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to assume then that they have not pressed backspace or enter. So now we need to see, did they press a letter key? In that case, we're going to put that letter onto the game board. But if they didn't press a letter key, if they pressed like a number or like the $sign or a function key or whatever, then we don't want to do, we don't want to do anything with that, right? Okay, so we're going to declare a new variable here called letFound, and we're going to say pressed key dot match. Now, what we're doing here, you don't have to know what this is. This is a little bit of something called a regular expression. So it's validating the pressed key against the letters A through Z and matching that. So you don't have to know what this is or what it does. Just know it's a regular expression and that can be useful for doing these types of evaluations. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later in class. For now, you can just copy and paste it in. Regex is a little bit of, it's wild, man. It can do a lot of stuff, but it's not super beginner friendly. So just copy and paste it in there. Yeah. So we've declared our variable. We said we're gonna match it against, A to Z, and then we're gonna say if our so we got a bang here for not yet rascal. Yeah, rascal. So we're gonna say if it's not found, if we can't get that match, or if they pressed more than one key at the same time, so if found.length is greater than 1, then exit. Don't accept that input. Cool cats. Y'all are cool cats. I'm telling you. Super cool. All right. Hey, there's nothing stopping you. You can send your cool cat emote. You're all good. Okay, so my indents are kind of screwed up here. Hang on. All right, there we go. So if it's not a valid keyboard key, and if the length is greater than 1, we don't want to mess with it. We're going to exit the function, and they're going to need to press the key again. Else, we're going to insert a letter into the game board via another function that we're going to define here in a second. So we're going to insert their pressed key if they did it right. So again, all this event listener is doing is, and I think I have a missed bracket there. There we go. All this event listener is doing is it's just checking for a key press, and it's evaluating whether it's valid input, and only if it is, then we're going to perform some actions on it. Yeah. See why that's highlighted there? Could not find name. Insert. Oh, because that's a function we haven't declared yet. So we'll get there in a second. Hey, Winchy. Cool cats. Y'all are cool cats. Okay, so, and it gives a little bit more context down here. It says this code uses a regular expression to check that the key we pressed was an alphabetical key representing a single letter, right? If the name of the key doesn't have any letters, it was a number, or it has multiple letters, like shift or tab, shift R, shift whatever, we ignore the event. Otherwise, we insert the letter onto the board. So that's all we did there. So now, speaking of inserting, we're going to define our insert letter function. Okay. Now we can actually start putting some stuff on the board. Let's go down a little bit. All right, so function insert letter. Yep, function insert letter. It's going to take in our pressed key as a parameter. And the first thing we're going to check is, are we at the end of a row? So we're going to say if next letter equals 5, return. Okay, so, and I know that we've done a lot of stuff here, so you might not remember what next letter is. So next letter starts at 0 and goes to, next letter starts at 0. We'll just say that. Next letter starts at 0, and it acts as the index for an array. So essentially we're building up our guess letter by letter. And so that acts as the index for the array. Now, why would we want to not accept a pressed key if next letter is equal to 5? Doesn't each of our rows have 5 spaces, right? So why wouldn't we want to accept the input if next letter is at 5? Does anybody know? 5 rows. Yeah, but there's 5 boxes, but you would think that if next letter is at 5, we wouldn't want to accept it. Yeah, Homefly's got it. Good catch. Index starts at 0, so the last element. Yeah, so we're at an overflow. If our index starts at 0, It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Yeah. Y'all got it. Yeah, no, I picked up what you were putting down, Homefly. You got it. Yep. Index 0 pace. Yeah, y'all are firing on all cylinders this evening. Very good. Yeah, so if we're past the end of the row, we don't want to keep going. Yep, 0 based index. Y'all got it on fleek. All right. So assuming we're okay there, we're going to say pressed, we're going to do a little formatting here, and we're going to set our pressed key to lowercase. So pressed key, because we're converting it to uppercase. So we're basically just standardizing the format, right? Pressed, and technically I don't think we should be able to accept uppercase input because we have that filter on against multiple key presses. So if I pressed Shift S, it wouldn't accept it anyway, but I think this might just be a little extra insurance. I mean, I guess you could have caps lock on maybe. Who knows? You got to control for this kind of stuff as much as you can. All right, so converting to lowercase, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a couple variables, basically for brevity, so we don't have to keep typing the same thing over and over again. So we're going to say document get element by class name, and we are going to we're going to get our elements by class name that are letter row, right? So essentially we're just grabbing each row because we gave our rows a class of letter row. So, okay. And so we're grabbing a row and we're specifying which row we grab by saying 6 minus guesses remaining. Now, let's think about what's happening there. So I'm going to make this big for a second so we can see the whole thing here. So we're essentially saying grab the row, whatever is the current empty row. So 6 minus the guesses remaining is going to give us the current empty row. Okay, so that's going to let us grab whatever the current empty row is so that we make sure that we're inserting our text into the correct row. Okay, somebody had a question here. Let me get back to that. Do you know why there is no else or else if? Is it implied? Yeah, in this case, we don't need it. This is just a quick check. I mean, we could have even condensed this even more into maybe like a ternary operator. We could have made this into one line, I think. It's just not needed. Because we know that if this is true, all it's doing is exiting the function. And if it's not true, it's going to skip it anyway and just keep going on. Yeah. So, I mean, for clarity, you could say, like, you could put an else in there, but it's not needed in this case. Yeah. So we're getting whatever the current empty row is. And then inside that row, we need to get the correct box. So we're going to set box equal to the child of the current row, row.children, and whatever the current value of next letter is. So this is getting a little wonky, but we'll go through it. So next letter yeah, no problem. Yep. And we'll get there in a second as to how next letter works, but essentially it tracks how far across the row we are, right? So we're going to grab the row, and then we grab the child, the box in that row, with the index of next letter. So we're using arrays in a practical sense here to track our rows and columns and iterate through those rows and columns using a practical application here of these array concepts that we're learning in class, which I think is neat. And then, so we've identified our row, and we've identified the correct box in that row. So we're going to set the text content of that box. Text content is going to equal the pressed key. So whatever key they pressed, we're then going to drop it in that box. And then we're going to add a little formatting to the box, and we're going to say box class list, and we're going to add one of the classes that we created earlier of filled box, which is just going to do a little light formatting. Add filled box. And now what we're also going to do is we also have to make sure that we are adding to the string that's building up our current guess. So we have a let me go back to the top here. I'm just going to real quick. I'm just going to go back to the top and remind us of our variables here. So whoops, sorry. So we declared an empty array called current guess. Okay. And what this is doing is it's keeping track of as we add in numbers, it's going to add to it as we go. Okay. So we're going to, and because we need to compare that current guess against the actual word so that as soon as they get the word correct, as soon as their guess matches the word in the word list, we want to make that comparison and let the user know. So we're adding to that as we go. So that's what we're going to do down here. We're going to add current guess dot push. We know this function, right? What is that? What is push going to do? What's push do to an array? Oh yeah, after we answer this question, Yomu, let's finish this little section right here. We'll finish this function and then we'll take a break. Yep, adds an element to the end. And so in this case, we're just adding the current pressed key to the end of our word guess, right? Yep, you all are exactly right. We're adding the pressed key to the end of our guess in that array. And then the very last thing we need to do is we also need to add 1 to our count in the row, and basically add 1 to our counter that's keeping track of where we're at in the row. And so I think we could probably do next letter plus plus, but in this case they just did plus equals 1. So, and why that's important is it makes sure that we don't hit the end of the row and accidentally keep going. Yeah, it's an incrementer, and we could probably do plus plus. In this case, they did plus equal 1. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so with that being said, was requested to have a break, and I think that's totally fine. It's been about 2 hours. And so we're going to let's take a 5-minute break, okay? And 5-minute timer. We'll set this, we'll get this going, and I will see you guys back in 5 minutes. Go get a drink, go get a stretch, go get a snack, let your dog out, kiss a baby, whatever. Yeah, we'll go over line 34 when we get back. Don't let me forget, okay? Yeah, Bob. Exactly. Yes, Bob is implied. But yeah. See you guys in a few minutes. Okay, and we are back. Alrighty. Let's see if I can get this off of here. Okay. Let's look back here and see. Yeah, we'll go over line 34. 2 hours already. Wow. Yeah, see, time flies when you're having fun, huh? Right? Christy's having some trouble with their JS file. Yeah, I think Rascal might be helping them elsewhere. But if you are also having this issue, that may be, if you're not using live server, the way this project is constructed, it uses modules, and Chrome doesn't like modules. If you're trying to run the index file, the HTML.index or index.html file straight from like the file folder where it's saved, it might not work. Well, it won't work. Chrome won't allow it to run. So you have to use the live server extension for VS Code. And I think that is specified in the free code camp instructions, but it doesn't tell you why, which is unfortunate. It just tells you that you should use it. It doesn't tell you that you have to, in which you actually have to use live server. Yeah. So that may be it. I hope if anybody else is having that trouble, that may help you. And thanks, Rascal. I appreciate that. If you're still around, thank you for helping folks all the time. You're very helpful. We were just trying to figure out the string on line 34. Yeah, okay. So let's look at line 34. And hey, Nene, welcome. If you didn't get notified, you can always catch the VOD and catch the beginning if you missed the beginning of the stream. Yeah. Hey Ryan, welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, stream's going well so far. We've built our game board and we're working on parsing our user inputs and inserting letters onto the board. Yeah. For live server, if you're launching it for the first time, you need to make sure you have everything saved. So save all your files, and then once you have live server installed, you can click in the bottom of your VS Code window. It'll say go live. And then that will, once you do that, you might have to confirm something saying, yes, I want to go live. And then it will launch in a browser window your file. Yeah. Okie doke. So yeah, let's look at that line 34. All right. So essentially what we're doing here is we're taking that key press and we are, we're parsing it to a string. Yeah, so we're turning that into a string so we can do some comparisons here. So that way we can compare like the pressed key, we can compare it directly against this string of like backspace or enter. Yeah. Does that help you? So we're taking the key, turning it into a string, and then doing some comparisons against it. Is string needed for, and then down here, after we do those basic backspace and enter comparisons, we are doing some additional checking with some regular expressions to make sure that, that it's a valid letter from A to Z. And that the length is not greater than 1, that they didn't just mash a bunch of keys at once. For this, I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with regular expressions to be able to tell you that. I would assume it needs to be a string, but I don't know that for sure. I'm not familiar with I haven't really worked with regular expressions very much. They're a different beast. And thank you, Jazz. Yeah, you said you can also right click on the HTML file and there's an option to launch. Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that. Very cool. Okay, let's see what else. Make sure I didn't miss anything here. Thought it was already a string since referencing the keyboard. Not necessarily. Sometimes things come in a different format than you might think. I'm not sure how I haven't used the, the key press function, the key press, type of event listener before. I haven't listened for key presses and tried to parse that input before. Normally you just take in something and you put it into a box, and then they might click a button, and then that brings what's in the box inside. I haven't listened for individual key inputs previously, so I'm not sure how it comes in, but apparently it's not a string, whatever it is. So that may be something to Google later to see when you use, on a key press, how is it brought in? Maybe at the end of this, if I don't forget, we can look that up. Okay, so we've done our insert letter where we've checked to see, the last thing we did was we wrote this insert letter function that basically says once we've parsed our input and determined that it's valid input, we first check to make sure that we're not at the end of a row. And then if we're clear there, then we convert our pressed key to lowercase, and we start figuring out where on the board it needs to go. So we figure out the proper row, we figure out the proper box, like the box on that row where it needs to go. And we're doing this based on, checking the index of where we're at in the row and the column. And then we add the content to the box of our pressed key. We add some formatting to the box, and then we also add to the end of our current guess, essentially to the array that's containing the word that we're guessing. We add we add it to the end. We add our pressed key to the end, and then we also iterate the next letter, which will bring us to the next box in the row. So I know this is a lot, but if we think through it, essentially all we're doing is we're taking most of the variables that we declared at the start. So at the very top, we're taking most of these variables here, and we're shifting them by one. So we're adding something to this array, we're adding something to our guess, we're adding something to our letter count, and I think in this case, that's about it. And then we're using those to determine where on the board we currently are. So we're adding to the guess, we're adding to the letter count, and that tells us where on the board we are. Okay, so we've done our insert letter, right? Now let's see what's next. So, and essentially this sums it up almost a little bit too much of a summary in my opinion, but insert letter checks that there's still space in the guess for the letter, finds the appropriate row, and puts the letter in the box. Yeah. So the next thing to do is delete letter. So we've inserted a letter. Now what happens if they hit backspace? If they hit backspace, we assume that they want to delete a letter. Now, earlier in our little parsing function here, in our event listener, we said if they press the backspace key and they're not at the beginning of the row, then we want to run a function called delete letter. Now we haven't defined that function yet, but we're going to do that right now. We're going to define delete letter. So some of this stuff, it's kind of interesting to think about, right? Because we take all this for granted. We take for granted the fact that if I hit the backspace key, the letter on the page is going to disappear. I mean, that's just what it's for, right? But our program doesn't know that. We have to tell it what that means, which I think is kind of wild to think about, right? Because you just think that's what's supposed to happen. But we have to tell it exactly what it should be doing when that backspace key is pressed. Because like Leon always says, computers only do what you tell them, right? And so here we got to tell them what that means when the backspace key is pressed. So again, we're going to do something similar. This should look a little bit similar to what we did in the last function. So we're going to say let row equal our current row. So we're going to take the document, get element by class name, and then we're going to say letter row, and then whatever row we're on is going to be the total number of guesses minus, and actually that's 6. I just thought of this. That 6 probably shouldn't be hard coded. It should probably be that constant that we defined earlier. But I'm going to leave it like this just because to match the tutorial, but I really think that 6 should actually be the guess constant that we declared at the beginning. Anyway, so we're going to say 6 minus, we go get, that's right. We're going to say 6 minus guesses remaining. Yeah. And so that's going to tell us what row we're supposed to be on. And after that, we're going to also declare our box, which is, again, just the same as before. We're going to say box is the children within that row, which we have. So by children, we mean, in this case, we mean the divs that are inside the row. We declared those as children when we set up our loops earlier. When we set up the boxes, we declared them as children of the row. They're nested inside. So in this case, they act as essentially array elements. So we can, since they act like array elements, we can treat them like elements. And so we can say for the element that is at the index that we specify. So in this case, we're going to say next letter -1. Okay. What does this mean? Why did we say we want the item that's at next letter -1? Well, so let's think about that for a second. And it may not make perfect sense right now, but when we're inserting a letter, we want to insert a letter in the next empty box, right? We don't want to insert a letter on top of what we just put in. So that insert, the index of where we're inserting the letter should be, well, it should be the next. It should be the next empty space. So in this case, we define box as row.children next letter. But if we want to delete an item, we only want to delete something from a box that's already filled. So in this case, we're going to declare when we want to delete, we're going to declare box as row.children next letter -1, because that's going to give us the most current filled box that we can then delete from. Okay. So if I'm at, if I'm 3 letter, let's say, so let's just look at this. So if I have put in, here, let's go to the one that works. If I've put in, if I've put in 3 letters and I want to delete one, if I want to delete that E, what is the index of the item that I'm deleting? Yeah, 2, right. So in this case, our next letter is equal to 3, but we want to delete what's at index 2. Yeah. Yep. Hey, Dangstrom, good to have you. And you got the right answer too. First try. Nice. Awesome sauce. Okay. Yep, you guys have got it. So when we're deleting something, we want it to make sure it's the last filled box, and we're not trying to delete out of the next box. Yeah. So that's I just wanted to be clear on the difference there. Okay. So after we've done that, so we've figured out what row and box we want. Oops, hang on. There we go. Then we actually want to set the text content of the box from the key press. We want to set it back to an empty box. So we just say that box.text content is empty. And then we also want to remove the styling that we added. So we're going to say box class list dot remove that filled box styling. Filled box. Yeah. I'm going to remove that styling. And we also want to remove the last letter from the array that we're building that holds our guess. So that array that holds all the letters that we've guessed so far, we want to say current guess. So what does pop do? one of those new things we just learned about. What does pop do to an array? Yeah. Yes. Removes the last element from the array. Yeah, you all got it. You all know what you're talking about. That's right. Yep. So for inserting, right? For inserting, when we inserted a letter, we used push to add it to the end of an array, and for deleting, we use pop. So that kind of helps. This is nice practice to help us remember what the opposites are. So if we're adding something to the end of an array, we use push, and if we're removing it, we use pop. Yeah. Okay. And then the last thing we want to do is we also want to make sure that we take one away from our counter. It's keeping track of how far of where we're at in our index, in our row index. It's keeping track of this. So if we remove one, we want to make sure we remove one from that index. That's all we're doing there. Oh, good, Ryan. I'm glad this is good. I love this. I love this project. Just because you can see inside of it. I mean, you don't have to know exactly how all this stuff works, and I can't build this from scratch. That's why I'm using this free code camp tutorial. But this project contains so many of the concepts that we've talked about in class, but it's a practical application for them. And we kind of talked about this at the beginning a little bit, that for some folks, me included, I can connect with the material a lot more when I can see how it's actually applied. All this abstract stuff kind of gets me a little bit bored after a while, because I don't know how any of it's going to be used. But now we're seeing practical applications of these array concepts and how you can put them into practice to do what you want. Yeah. Will we be using unshift? I don't think so, because we don't really need it in this concept, in this context, right? Because if we're building a word, that word is going to be built left to right, and so we're always going to be adding things onto the end. And for this particular project, I don't see us needing to add things to the beginning of an array, just because that's really that's not generally how words are constructed. For other projects, of course, you might need that, but not in this case. Ray, was that a question? I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. VDmin, 100% abstract seems like it won't make sense until after the fact. This is the way. Yeah, 100% abstract. You might read it and you'll be like, yeah, I guess that makes sense maybe. But yeah, you don't really know until you try it. And so here we're building something with it, which I dig. Yeah, so any more questions on the delete function? So we've inserted, we've deleted. So we've parsed the input, we've inserted, and we've deleted. Okay, cool. Now, the only last thing that we need to do is finally actually check what they've put in, right? We've done all this work, and all we've done so far is made it so they can put stuff on the board. Put valid stuff on the board. Now we actually want to do the logic where we check their guess and give them some feedback on it. Okay, and it looks like I may have a missing bracket somewhere. Jeepers. All right, let me just check this really quickly, see if I've got a missing bracket. That looks fine. Oh, I bet what do I have here? Oh, I know what I did. I forgot the function keyword. Bloop. There we go. That'll do it. Yep. Thanks, Silent Spy. Yeah, you got it. Yep, and Jazz got it too. Yeah, glad y'all are watching out for me here. Okay, so now, at long last, we're actually going to start interacting with the user a little bit. So we're going to write a function called checkGuess. And if you remember, we called checkGuess a little bit prior here, and we said if pressed key is enter, then call checkGuess. So down here we're actually we're gonna define what checkGuess is. So we're gonna say function checkGuess. Now if you've we'll remind ourselves here of what kind of feedback we want to give the user. So how Wordle works is as you enter, I'm going to actually use my good copy here. As you enter letters, it doesn't do anything. Let's see, I'm going to say sheep. It doesn't do anything until you hit the enter key, and then it gives you some feedback on what you've entered. So I'm going to hit enter, and the gray squares are letters that are incorrect, so they are not in the word. The yellow are letters that are in the word but are in the wrong place. So this E is not in the middle. So if I do, let's say, again, a lot of these are going to be wrong. I'm not putting a lot of thought into this, but now we can see that I put the E in the right place and it's turned green. So that's the kind of feedback we're going to want to give the user here. Okay, so again, we're going to do some basic declarations here just to make things a little bit easier a little bit more dry. So we're going to declare row again, and you notice we're declaring row a lot, but that's because these are all variables that are local to the function, so they don't carry over. So we just declare row again, and we're going to set our guest string. We're going to declare a new variable here called guest string. Oops. Ugh, come on. Don't autocomplete on me, man. Let guess string. Okay, there we go. Equal to an empty string. So we're creating a string here, and what this string is going to do is it's going to let us check. We're going to convert our array that we've been building. We're going to convert that into a string, and we're going to check it against our word list to see if it's right. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to say let right guess equal array from right guess string. Now we've got a lot of variables going on here. So right guess string is a global variable that we declared up at the top. And if you remember, right guess string was our the word that we randomly pulled from our word list. So we've got a random word that we've stored in this variable this entire time, and now we're finally going to use it. So we grabbed a random word, and now we're finally gonna make use of it. And what we're doing here is we're generating an array from that string. So we're doing a couple different things here, but we'll see how these are applied here in a minute. Okay, so first thing we have is a for loop, and there's a couple different ways you can construct a for loop. The way we're most familiar with, right, is saying I equals 0 for I less than whatever. We, then keep looping. But we can also, there's a special kind of for loop we can do for arrays, where we can just say for const val of current guess, where current guess is our array that contains our guess. We're going to loop through that. And we're going to convert that current guess array into a string. So for each value in the current guess array, we're going to turn it into a string. Array from, let's see, silence by oh yeah, it's just word wrap. It's word wrap is forcing this to the second line. We're saying array from right guess string. Yeah. It's a little, word wrap is messing us up a little bit here. Let me just, there. Yeah. So that should all be one line, but it's a little long. So we're essentially, we're building our ability to compare here, because our word list that we have, it's all just regular strings, right? So we got to make sure that any of our arrays that we want to compare are converted to strings. So that's what we're doing. You can shrink the Explorer pane on the left. Okay, how do I do that? Can I would love for this to be shrunk down. That'd be great. Just highlight over it. Okay. Or, okay, Control B. Hey, there we go. That was good. Awesome. Thank you. Much appreciated. Then if assuming, yeah, okay, great. I can toggle it on and off. That's perfect. Thank you so much. That helps a lot. Nice. Yay for keyboard shortcuts. You gotta love it. Okay. Yes, we got our guest string, and click and drag the blue border on the right. I'm not quite sure what border, Russell, you're referring to there. I think this is a pretty good window size, though. I don't think I need any more real estate. This is much better. Okay, let's keep going. All right, so we were building a string out of our current guess array, just so we can start to compare it. And it's a new type of for loop. Yeah, it is. And this is also in the reading as well. I forget which reading it's in, but yeah, this is a type of for loop that you can use with arrays, which helps you loop through the array that you specify. It takes each item in the array, and you can call this whatever you want, but they're calling it val here. So for each val in the array, in our current guess array, we are adding that to our string. Oh, okay. Thanks, Rascal. Yeah, appreciate it. It reminds me of Python. Yeah, and I believe this is new. Yeah, I believe this is new. Reminds me of Python. Maybe so. I feel like the languages are kind of, they cherry pick, good things from other languages and put them in, which is, generally a good thing. Okay, so we've done that, right? Now we're going to do some comparisons. So we're going to say if our guess string, so our brand new string that we just created, if guess string dot length is not equal to 5, so remember all of our words need to have a length of 5, then we can say not enough letters. So if they've hit the enter key thinking that they're done with their guess, then we should tell them that, hey, you don't have enough letters. Now really we could just have it not do anything, but in this case we're being nice, I guess. And then we exit the function. So we can see that in action here. So if I were to say POR and hit enter, oh, I hit a Q there, sorry. It says not enough letters. So that's when we get that alert, when our word is too short. So that's the first check we're doing. The next thing we want to check is to see, is the word, so assuming the word is the correct length, is it in our word list? So we're going to check and see if, now we're going to say, could you have it just return? Could you have it return to have it exit the function? Yeah. We're just doing the extra alert there. Yep. So if our words, if our words array does not, so we're going to use the bang there. If words does not include our guess dot includes. Now we've seen this, right? We've seen that includes keyword. So it's checking to see if words does not include our guess string. So what it's doing there is it's taking the string, it's going down through this entire list, this entire giant array, and saying, is it in there? If words does not include guess string, then we give them an alert that says, hey, the word's not in the list. Word not in list. And then again, we exit the function. Whoops. Return. So this is just taking in all the possibilities. When they hit that enter key, we're doing these checks and giving them feedback based on the checks. So we haven't even done any formatting yet, but we're going to get into that in just a second here. This is just giving them verbal feedback on their entry if it's not correct. Okay, so the next thing we're doing now, assuming that their entry is okay, we should give them feedback on the entry to tell them what else they need to do. And And if you recall, what happens when I enter a valid word? So when I enter a valid word, let me enter a good word here. Pores. We'll just say that. Watch what happens. It goes across the entire row, boop, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and applies formatting to every item in the row, right? So this looks like some kind of a loop, right? It's starting here and it's going for each of the items in the row. It's performing an action. So a for loop seems to be in order to do each of these actions until the row is until it's gone through the entire row. So for, we're going to do a bunch of stuff. For let I equals 0 and I is less than 5, I plus plus. Okay, and now before I get too into this, I'm sorry I didn't pause here to see if there was questions on the types of checks that we were doing up top here. Does anybody have any questions about this? And silence by, yes, if a letter is yellow, it's the right letter, it exists in the word, but it's in the wrong position. If it's green, it's the right letter and it's in the right position. No else ifs. Not in this case. No, I think it's, I mean, you could, I suppose. We're doing a lot of different things here. They're kind of unrelated. And after each one, if it doesn't, if we go into this if statement, we have a pretty explicit return here that's just telling us to immediately exit the function. So I think that's what it's doing. It's just trying to be efficient in kicking us out of the function as soon as possible if one of these criteria isn't met. That's just my guess as to why that's written that way. Yeah. That could be too. It could be readability as well. Just because, yeah, these are very different. These two ifs are very different from each other, right? They're both alerting the user, but they're alerting the user about very different things. So that's, probably a valid reason for keeping them separate. Yeah. Okay, so in our for loop here, we're actually finally going to start doing a little formatting to give the user feedback on their entry. So we're going to declare a new variable called letter color. And you can see we're using a lot of local variables here, which for a very long script like this is a good thing. We only had a few global variables that we declared at the start. The rest of these have just been local and they only exist in the function, which keeps things a lot cleaner and stops you from accidentally sort of colliding in your name usage. So again, we're going to declare box, and this time we're going to set box equal to our row, and we can still use row because we're still in the same function. So let's see, I think row, did we not say row? Or maybe, I guess row must be native. So, okay, so row must be valid. Row, children. So the child of our row is going to be one of the boxes. So in each of our rows, the children are each of these boxes. Just a reminder on that. Okay, so box is going to be equal to a child of a row, and letter, letter equal, letter is going to be the index in our current guess. Okay, so after we're done with that, we can say, oh, there's one more we got to declare. Let letter position. So now what we're doing here is we're checking the position of the letter to see if we're checking the position of the letter to see if it matches up with the position of the letter in the word list. We're saying letter position right guess. So again, right guess is the answer, is the correct word. Letter position, right guess, index of current guess I. So what we're doing here is we're matching the position of the, we're checking to see if the letter that they've entered is inside the correct guess. Now, let's look at this again. So we're checking to see right guess, index of, so checking inside the right guess, and return the index of the letter inside current guess. So that's hard to wrap your head around. But essentially, if the letter we have chosen exists inside of the correct answer, then it's going to return a valid index between 0 and 4. But if the letter does not exist, then the letter position, if an item doesn't exist inside of an array and you try to look for the index of it, does anybody know what that'll return? Instead of 0 or 1 or 2 or whatever, what'll it return? Undefined, that's a good guess. Yeah, this is a hard question. So if I'm looking for something inside of an array, it doesn't matter what the array is or what I'm looking for, but if the thing that I'm looking for does not exist inside that array and I try to get the index of it, what's going to come back? What'll it return? So if I'm looking for a non-existent item inside of an array, missing, yeah, that's the general, undefined. If I try to get the index of that item, what are we going to get? This is a hard question because I think we've only ever even touched on it once. Hey, Yomu's got it. It's actually going to return -1. Because, valid positions inside of an array start at 0, right? So, index starts at 0. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, blah, blah. But if that item doesn't exist, you get back -1. Yeah, VDmin. Nice, nailed it. First try. Yeah. So you get back -1. So if we check for our current guess inside of the right guess, if we check for a letter, let's just be simpler about this. So if I check for the letter P inside of the correct guess, and that does not exist, then I get back an index of -1. Yeah. So that's the next thing that we're checking. That's the next thing we're checking for. So if letter position equals -1, letter color is going to be gray. And that's exactly what's happening. We can see that's what's happening here, is that letters that don't exist inside the correct word, letters that don't exist inside the correct word get colored gray. That's right. That's where we do that check right there. Yeah. And it's going to check against, and as it goes through the row, because remember, we're looping here. We're inside a loop. So it's going to check every single letter of current guess, return that letter. So for example, in this line, it's going to return P. It's going to return P first. It's going to check inside right guess and see if it can get an index for P. If it can't, it's going to color it gray. Then it's going to check O. Can it get an index for O? No, it can't. So O turns gray. And can it get an index for U? Yes, it can. So that's going to return some value, and then we're going to do some additional formatting on that. But yeah, so we've got the wrong guesses here first. Senpai Yomio too. Nice. Yep. And now, for those of you who have just been clamoring for some else statements, we get an else statement. Hooray. Finally, else statement. Okay. So, but that's only because we're gonna nest some ifs. Oh, you're a rock star. Thanks, Eternal. At this for 3 hours. Man, it doesn't feel like it. It's only 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's nothing, man. We had a stream last week that went for 5 hours. This is chump change. Okay. But we are nearly done, I promise. For those of you that might be getting a little tired, we're almost done. We're doing the formatting now. This is the pretty stuff. This is the cherries and the frosting. We've already baked the cupcake. Now we're putting frosting on it. Yep. Okay, so else. And we got some comments here. It says, so, and this is kind of telling us what we're doing in this else statement, right? So we're saying if the letter is definitely in the word, so we've determined that the letter's in the word because we've already formatted the letters that aren't. If the letter index and the index for the right guess are the same, the letter is in the right position. Okay, so if we look at the word, if we look at our guess, we get the index for the letter that we've put in, which we already have that, and then we compare it against the index of the letter in the correct answer, and those are the same, then we color that letter green. Okay, so we have a nested if here. We say if current guess, the index of our current guess, that letter, equals, if that letter's in the same position in the correct answer, at the same index, then we color it green. Letter color equals green. Okay. And then we have one more else. The only other thing we can do is if, essentially, that's the only other option. We just set the letter color to yellow. Because assuming if it's not in the right position, but it is in the word, the only other possible option is that it's yellow. Yeah, and then that's a reasonable statement, right, Dev? If you see code, they say, if I see code like this, I can understand what it's doing, but writing this on my own from scratch would take me at least a month of actual work without counting days spent crying. Yeah, and honestly, I couldn't write this from scratch either. This is complicated. This is doing a lot of things, right? And like we know the individual concepts, we can kind of see them in there. We can pick them out, but I couldn't write this from scratch, at least not at this point. I'm sure we'll get there. But I'm just not at that level yet. And so that's why I found something that I wanted to do, right? I wanted to build a Wordle game. That was what I went into it saying, I want to build Wordle. I like Wordle. I want to build it. I found a tutorial that's going to teach me how, and I have no shame at literally just walking through the tutorial and using it and recognizing the concepts and practicing those concepts. You know, we're talking about what each thing is doing, but there's no problem that we don't know how to build this from scratch. Professional developers reuse things all the time. I mean, if I wouldn't try to obviously sell this as my own creation, right? That would not be good. But you can use bits and pieces, and you can build those Lego blocks that Leon's talking about. And we're just practicing. We're rehearsing right now, and just figuring out how these things can fit together. Not necessarily that we can do it, but figuring out how they work in the real world. So yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable statement, and I'm much the same way. I would not waste my time trying to beat my head against this, at this point in my knowledge. This would not be a good use of my time. But instead, I can use something that's already built and learn from it. Yeah. That's why these sorts of tutorials exist, right? There's no shame in using them. Okay. So we've done the formatting, and we've closed our if statements. And the last thing that we're doing is we're saying right guess letter position. And and I looked at this and I'm not entirely sure what it's for, what this little statement is for. We're essentially setting letter position to an octothorpe. It looks like it may just be resetting the letter position. And so it can, when it runs again, it's, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what this little statement is doing, to be honest, but because it's going to run again and it's going to reset the, oh wait, no, hang on. So else letter position. So this is inside of our outer else statement, right? Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that's resetting that or why that's necessary, but hey, something to think about. Champo says, I took a JavaScript course and we learned this and had to build a game at the end. Man, it was hard. I recognize a few of the things we were using. It takes time to understand all the functionality. Yeah. And we shouldn't, like, there's, I don't know why this is here. I don't know why this is necessary. So there's going to be things that we don't understand. And for now, we just do it. And then maybe we play with it, remove it, see if it changes the behavior, tweak it, and see what happens. Just play around. First time chat. Oh, hey, Bathtub. Best starter language, question mark? I don't know. We all start in different places. I started with SQL. That was all I knew before this course. I didn't know any other languages other than SQL. Best starter languages. Your second language. I don't know if you're asking me. This is my second language, yeah. My first was SQL, like I said, which is very different, but some of the concepts are still similar. Yeah, so essentially now we've done our formatting. Now we're going to get a little bit fancy, and my first language was body language. Yeah. I vote HTML. So the next thing we're going to do is when you type in a word in the box here, you'll notice I'm just going to say trees. You'll notice that when I hit enter, there's a little bit of a delay. There's some fancy formatting that's going on here. The formatting doesn't just pop in right away. There's a delay as we loop through each one. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to set our delay. Just a little bit. Python is easy to read. It's almost English. Yeah, so is SQL, actually. I don't know if you've ever looked at SQL, or SQL. It's deliberately written to be very similar to English. It almost reads like a sentence. You don't use a lot of abbreviations. You write out a lot of full words. Yeah, so that's another one that's very, very similar to written English. You can look up a few statements. Yeah, Dev. Okay, yeah, you use SQL at work. That's awesome. Yeah, I do. Yep. I use, yeah, that's my day job is I'm a SQL developer. So, yep. What killed me in SQL was joining tables. Yeah, the joins actually, that seems to have more to do with the data structures at your company. If your company has whack data structures, then that's going to make it a lot harder to do joins. Yeah. Okay, so let's do our delay. Let delay equal. So this we're just 250 times I. And we're just saying, or I think the 250 I think is milliseconds. We're setting a timeout. We're just setting a little timeout function. I'm not 100% on like how this works, but I'm gonna do it. Just doing it for now. Putting the Lego bricks together. I haven't done really a timeout before, but anyway, so basically this is just saying inside the timeout function, we're going to add some styling. We're going to style our box with a background color. Box.style. Oh, come on. Autocomplete. Style. Dot background color equals letter color. So here we're actually setting, so we declared the letter color before. We set it to, well, we declared it and we set it to a value, right? So, but we didn't apply it. So now we're going to apply letter color to the box. And we're also going to call another function, which again, we haven't defined yet, that's going to shade the keyboard the same color. Letter color. Okay. And then we are going to set that to a timeout. And I need a bracket. And delay. So we're going to set it to a certain delay. I think that's, because yeah, I think what this is doing is it's setting to like I don't know what this unit of value is, 250 milliseconds. And it's doing one after the other. Yeah. Fortunately, I'm just the admin of the server. Hey, I appreciate my server admins. They keep things running for me. Thank you. It's nice to know that's how experienced developers learn too. Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I don't have a CS degree. I have no formal training. So everything I've learned on the job, which means my focus so far has been very narrow. So I never learned any of the theory or any other languages other than SQL, just because I always just learned as I went. So this has been really good for me. That's the animation it does when checking. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like checking each letter every 250 milliseconds. Yep. Yeah, we definitely, that's why we want the delay, because we don't want all the animations to show up, or all the formatting to just show up all at once. We want it to have that cool sort of delay effect. Yep. Oh, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, I'm having fun. Hope you are too. Let me make sure I got my brackets going right here. I think that's okay. We'll see. I might have an extra bracket there. Here's your partner bracket. Okay, so that's the bracket on the for loop. Yeah, I think I might have an extra, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. Okay, this function's getting really long, so it's hard to tell. Bracket on the for loop. Okay, yeah, so I want that there, and then I gotta have this outside the for loop. And now the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna check, after we've done all the formatting, we're gonna check and see if the string that we guess, if guess string is finally fully equal to the correct answer, then we give them the game over message. We say, alert, you guessed right. You guessed right. Game over. And we set our remaining guesses to 0. So essentially we force the game to end. Thanks, Deb. Much appreciated. Okay, so the other option, so we've entered a full word, we've formatted that word, we've checked to see whether that full word is equal to the correct answer. If it is, we end the game. If it's not, then we add 1 to the remaining guesses. Or sorry, we take away 1 from the remaining guesses. We increment that down. We reset the current guess to an empty array, because essentially what we're doing here is we're heading to the next row. So our current guess, after I guess a word here, right? So after I guessed trees, it did all the formatting, and it's going to take me to the next row. It's going to give me an empty array that I'm going to fill in with another 5 letters. So that's what we're doing visually there. We're setting the current guess, again, equal to an empty array. And I'm started using semicolons again for no apparent reason. And again, also our index within the row, we're resetting that to 0 as well. So essentially, we're just resetting all of our variables back to the beginning, so we can start our next guess. Oh, good. Okay. Oh, I'm glad it's giving you, some ideas of how to learn, and how to maybe be creative with some of the materials that we're learning. Thanks, Silent. Yeah. Good. Oh, are you asking how to learn? Are you asking how to learn with all these ideas? Just want to make sure I understand the statement there. So so now those two making things spicy. Yeah, so I mean, if you're interested in, you know, oh, thank you. Yeah. Just appreciate. Yeah, no. Much appreciated. Thank you for the feedback. I'm glad these streams are helping folks. And like I say, if I wasn't enjoying this, I wouldn't be doing it. I could stop, you know, I'm not making any money off of this. I could stop anytime, right? But I'm having fun, so I keep doing them. And I'm glad they're helping other people too. Oh, good. Thanks, Jenna. Awesome. Okay, so we're almost done with our final checks, right? So we've reset all of our variables. We've reset the array to 0. But the last thing we need to check is if, and the probably the most crucial thing that we did is we reduced the number of guesses remaining. So if they got it wrong, we want to take one off their remaining guesses. And we also want to check and see, okay, if what we just did that make their guesses remaining equal to 0? If so, then they're out of luck. And so we're going to give them 2 alerts, and I'm just going to copy paste these things. I don't want to type them all out. Just going to grab them here. So we're going to give them 2 alerts. You've run out of guesses, game over, and then we also give them the right answer. So we tell them where they failed. And this, like I said earlier, this word list is actually pretty hard. So as I was testing this, I made it to this alert quite a few times, actually, because I couldn't guess the word. So yeah, and here it gives you a little summary. So it says check guess is pretty long. So it does a few things. It makes sure the guess is 5 letters. It makes sure that the guess is, I guess this is trying to say, it makes sure that the guess is valid inside the word list. So it exists inside the word list. Make sure the guess is a valid list. It makes sure it's a valid word. Checks each letter of the word and shades them. Tells the user about the end of the game. Yeah, so that's all this is doing. And again, it's just reiterating the type of shading that we did. We kind of talked about that already. Checks that the letter is in the correct word. If the letter's not in the word, it shades the letter gray. If the letter is in the word, it checks if it's in the right position, and then it shades it green if it is, else shades yellow. So the last thing we need to do is we need to also shade the keyboard. So we can see that, you know, it shades the grid, then it also is going to shade the keyboard with the same type of formatting. So that's the last thing we need to do. Now I think I may have an extra bracket here. I'm seeing a little whoop-de-doo there, so we'll see. This might blow up, but this function is so long. Ugh. I don't know exactly where the problem might be, but whoop. Hey, there. Let's see if I can pinpoint where I'm screwed up a bracket. So I already checked. We've got the for loop. That if looks okay. Nested if looks okay. Else statement is fine. Timeout function. Do I have an extra bracket there? No, that's the end of the for loop. Yeah, that's fine. And that looks okay. That's the end of that. Let's see, what is this? This is the end of the else. Yeah, that's okay. This is what? What is that? Rogue bracket. Okay, so that's the beginning of this. So I have an extra bracket there. We'll see if this bites me in the butt later, but you know. I like the add-ons that color the individual indents for this. Yeah, that would probably be helpful. I should get that. Yeah, good call. All right, well, let's see if this, we're gonna stop here for a second. Before we do the keyboard shading, we haven't actually tested this in a while. I'm gonna see if this works. Let's see, not that one, that's the good one. All right, let's test all this work that we did. So, okay, that's good. So it's entering the letters correctly, right? And it's formatting them. So you can see it's putting the black format around them. It's putting them correctly. I can't enter past the row. I can keep tapping my keyboard and I don't get anything. So now let's test the formatting. Hey, look at that. The formatting is working. Yeah. So you can see I got a letter right. I got one that was right but in the wrong position. So perfect. Good, good. So it looks like I did get my brackets right after all. I just have a bad indent somewhere, I think. That's okay. We'll live. All right, let's keep powering through. We're almost done. Okay, so the last thing I want to do, I'm going to just double check this bracket was at the end of my function. Yeah, okay, that's the end of that function. Now we're going to define our keyboard shading here. So function shade keyboard. And I think we have called this already, so it already exists. We're going to pass in the letter that we want to shade as well as the color that we want to shade it. And we're going to say, again, we're going to use the for loop that exists for arrays. We can say const, I don't know, we can call this whatever, it doesn't matter, const lm of document. So essentially, for everything with a class name of keyboard button, get element by class name, keyboard button. So it's going to loop through, not bottom, keyboard button. For everything with that class name, make sure I get that. We are going to figure out what color we should make it. Okay, so we're going to say, so it's going to loop through the whole keyboard and it's going to check and see, does the content of that keyboard button, does the content of that button match the letter that we're passing in? It should only match one, right? If I pass in an E, it's going to look through the whole keyboard and it's going to say, hey, where's the E? It's going to settle on that E, and then it's going to figure out what color it should make it. So first we have to figure out, does it already have a color? So we're going to grab the current color, style background color. There we go. Now, why are we doing that? Why do we want to know the current color of that keyboard key? Let's just look at this real quick. Why would I already want to know what color this key is? Why would I want to know that this is yellow or this is green? Any guesses? I'm taking a drink while y'all think. User knows what position. Yes, yeah, and that's what the colors are telling us in general. Let's answer is in the console. That's true. We're just giving them some extra feedback and shading the keyboard in the same way, really, to discourage people from using the same letters again. Yeah, and that's part of the answer. Yeah, and so we're grabbing the old color mostly so that we don't accidentally overwrite a good color. So let's say like for example, in this line, I guessed leaps, right? And at that point, the E was turned green up here in the console. Well, we also turned it green down here on the keyboard because, hey, you got that letter right, it's in the right position. But because I wasn't thinking, I guessed it again down here. So this is the most recent guess. But you notice that it stayed green down here. So even though I was a dingus and I didn't pay attention and I entered it again, it still stayed green down here because we want to show the user that it is a valid letter. We've already guessed it. It was in the right place. I shouldn't have guessed it again. So this is just an extra indicator for the user to say, hey, we don't want to put it back to yellow because we know we already got it right once up here. Yeah, Yomi, that's a good summary. To clue the user that the correct letter has been used in the correct position, and so I shouldn't be clicking this again. I shouldn't be doing this again. It's already been found. It's done. And you can have double letters, but I mean, there's really no way to control for that. You can have, double letters in multiple positions, but that's fairly rare. So the best indicator is to just leave it green. So even if they guess wrong, again, like I did down here, we shouldn't change the color back. That's why we need to know the old color. Yeah. So that was less of a functional question, more of just a little logic exercise there. That's why I asked. Okay. So we're gonna grab the old color and we say if old color is green, then just exit the function. Do nothing. Don't change the color. Leave it green. But, whoops. If old color is yellow, and the color that we're passing in, so the format that we determined up above, if the format that we determined is not green, so we only want to go up, we only want to get better. So if that's like, if we pass in gray or yellow, then again, do nothing. Exit the function. Why make a clone and not something original? Because like I mentioned earlier, I don't have the skills to do this yet. I don't think, I mean, unless you have some decent code experience, I don't think a lot of us do. But what I did want to do is apply the concepts that we've been talking about in class to something real, to really, to get something that we can get our hands on that's a fun game. And I just like Wordle. I just really wanted to build Wordle, but I don't have the skills yet to make it function the way that the real game does. So what do? I go look, I find a tutorial, and we get to practice. We practice the concepts that we're talking about in class in a way that we know, at the end of this, we know we're going to get a functional game. There's none of that beating your head against it for hours, trying to figure out why does this one stupid thing doesn't work, or, oh, my logic was wrong. I got the concepts right. My logic was wrong. Nah, we're just going to do a tutorial. We're going to get something cool out of it at the end, and we're going to get to walk through all the concepts that we talked about in class, or a lot of the concepts that we talked about in class. So it's really a win for everybody. There's no shame in doing something that isn't original as long as you're not trying to market it as your own. We're using it as a teaching tool. Oh, and today I learned about Wordle. Yeah, it's a really fun little game. Okay, so last thing we're doing. So assuming that the old color isn't green and that we're passing in a new color that we want to show the user, then we're going to go ahead and set that. So we're going to say style, background color equals color. Sounds good. Yeah. And so the most important thing that we're doing here, Elver, is that we're not doing this in a vacuum, right? We're doing this together as a group. And as we get to each concept, we're talking about it, what it's doing and why it works. Because yeah, if I was just coding this in a vacuum, if I was just doing this myself and like just going through type, then it really, it wouldn't probably have the same impact. But we're doing it together and we're stopping and we're asking questions and we're talking about each of the items. Even if we don't know exactly how they fit together, we can identify stuff like oh, hey, like we're grabbing an array index, or, or like here, we're grabbing an array index, we're doing for loops. We're grabbing something out of an array. We're pointing out all of these different concepts, and we're just practicing the same thing that we just talked about in class a couple days ago. So I'm not saying it's the best possible tool, and I've built a lot of my own projects too, like from scratch. But in this case, I think it fills a unique space, a valuable space. Okay, so we finished with Shade Keyboard. So now it's gonna, when we run this, as we make our guesses, it's going to shade the keyboard accordingly. So again, it tells us what it's doing here. We're going to find the key. Yeah, functional recall. Exactly, VDadmin. Yeah. Hey, that could be a possibility too. You never know. I don't know your habits, but hey, everybody learns differently too. It may be that, just going through the tutorials by rote may not be the best thing for you. Maybe I hope that this, cohort is exposing us all to different ways of learning, whether we learn better as a group, whether we learn better individually, whether we like to teach. Like, I didn't know, I've never streamed before in my life. I'm not a teacher. I don't have an educational background, but I like it. And this cohort has taught me that that is a good way that I learn. So I hope you find ways to learn that are more beneficial for you than what you've tried in the past. Oh. Well, I hope that as you keep going with this cohort, Elver, that you do stumble upon a method that works for you. I truly hope that for you. Okay, so we did shade keyboard. Find the key that matches the given letter. If the key is already green, do nothing. If the key is currently yellow, only allow it to become green. Else, shade the key passed to the function. Okay. So if it's just a key that doesn't have any color, we're going to pass whatever to it. We're just going to pass whatever color we give it. Okay, so this last part we're not going to do. You can absolutely do it on your own, but we're not going to do it. This is adding some separate functionality that we haven't talked about or anything like that. So it's not necessary. All of the alerts and the boxes that we've already added into our code are going to work just as effectively. So we don't need to add any special pop-ups or anything like that. We already have our alerts and our console alerts and that sort of thing. Those will be just fine. So we're going to skip this whole bottom part. Then the last little thing that we would need to do is make sure that our on-screen keyboard, when we click, we want it to put the letter in the box, right? Right now, if I go to my version, when we click, nothing happens. Okay, so the last thing we need to do, oh, thanks, Champo, appreciate it. Okay, so how to make the on-screen keyboard generate input. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to add an event listener to the keyboard, which is going to tell it, hey, when somebody clicks something in the keyboard, put a letter in a box. This one's fairly short. Get element by ID. And again, keyboard container, that is the whole box. So we're listening inside the entire keyboard body for any clicks anywhere in the keyboard. It doesn't matter if they're on a letter or what. We're just listening for clicks. So we're going to add an event listener, and we're going to do it. And this we should be familiar with. We're going to add it on click. So we've done that before, right? We've added tons of event listeners on clicks, and we're going to go ahead and declare essentially an arrow function inside of our event listener. This is unique. I haven't done functions inside of an event listener before. I think it's kind of neat. So inside of our event listener, I'm going to scroll up here a little bit, get out of that. We're going to set a target variable, which is going to be like essentially the target of whatever they've clicked. We need to identify what they're clicking. Did they click a letter? Did they click something random? What did they click? So we're going to say if they've clicked something that is not a keyboard button. So we're saying if what they've clicked is not something that we have defined as a keyboard button, then exit the function. So if I go in here and I click, I don't know, like, because remember, all of this is the keyboard box. All this whole space down here is keyboard box. So if I accidentally click in between a button, oops, that's the right click. If I left click in between a keyboard button, we don't want anything to happen, right? So we're going to exit the function if they click something that's not a button. target class list dot contains keyboard button. So because we put the bang there, that's gonna make it be the opposite. So if it's not a keyboard button, return, exit, get out. Okay. Else, well, essentially this is like else. We've exited our if statement, and we're going to say let key. Now we're assuming that they've clicked on a key, right? If they've clicked on something that's a keyboard button, then it's going to be a key on our keyboard. So we're going to define key as the content of the target. So it's going to have some text in it because it's a keyboard button. All of our keyboard buttons have text in them. So we're going to grab that text. And we're going to say if that key is delete, then that should be the same as backspace. And we defined earlier what happens when somebody hits a backspace. So that's already been taken care of. We don't need to do that again. We already know what happens if the key is a backspace. We defined that about, I don't know, maybe an hour ago or so, maybe more. Otherwise, we don't need to control what happens with enter, because enter is the same as if I were to hit it on a keyboard. Enter on here and enter on the keyboard are the same thing. So we don't need to redefine that. For everything else, we're going to, we are going to essentially call a key up event. So I'm going to write this out and then we're going to explain what's happening here. So keyboard event, key up, just need to make sure I get this right. Key up, key, colon, key. So what we're essentially doing here is we are mimicking, assuming that they've clicked a valid button, we are, with this button click, we are mimicking as if I had hit the same letter on the keyboard. We're creating a key up event, which we defined earlier as when the user, hits a key on the keyboard, then do all that function, do all the checking and everything. So we're mimicking that same event here with a click on the virtual keyboard. So we're essentially saying, hey, create a keyboard event with a key up, which is going to then trigger our other functions that happened earlier. That's all we're doing. We're mimicking the physical keyboard with the virtual keyboard. Yeah. And I don't know what all these things do, but I do know what this is doing in general, what action is taking. So we're mimicking the key up event, which will then trigger all of our other functions and do all the same things that would happen as if I had typed this on the physical keyboard. Yeah. It's the only thing, that's all that's happening there. Okay. We're not going to add any animations. We don't need them. We're too cool for animations. We're playing it old school. If you ask me tomorrow if there's any way to simulate someone pressing a key, I'd have no idea. Well, I mean, you don't have to know exactly what's happening, but you can say, hey, I think we might have done that. And so what I do a lot is I'll kind of half remember it, and I'll be like, yeah, I think I did something like that on such and such project. And then I can go back and I just pull it from the project where I did it. That's another cool thing about doing so many different types of projects is that, yeah, I might not understand exactly what's happening right now, but I can, if it's referenced later, I'll kind of be like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. And then, it might trigger once you start to learn more about what each of these things are, then you can say, yeah, I have used that and I remember what it did. Yeah, Ryan, thank you, Ryan. JS MDN key up event. Yep. You can Google, he's given you the Google search term there if you want to look it up. It's up to you. Out of curiosity, does your live server page work with the Windows pop-up keyboard instead of your physical keyboard? I would assuming that the Windows virtual keyboard is also simulating physical key presses. Yes, Florence, you're right. Yes, we can use the physical keyboard because that's actually what we defined first, is we set up an event listener. Let me find it. All the way up here. Yeah, we're almost there. We set up here, right here. We said document add event listener key up, which listens for physical keyboard presses. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to be a contributor to your Anki, Ray. Thanks. Yes. Yep. Adding things to the Yankee. Just, might come in handy someday. Yeah, so we did do that earlier, and this is listening for a physical key press. And so down here, we are essentially simulating that physical key press through a virtual keyboard. And I guess what I was saying earlier is with the Windows virtual keyboard, I assume that that's what that's doing too, just the built-in virtual keyboard in Windows. I assume that it's also simulating physical key presses for those that can't use a physical keyboard for some reason or prefer not to. I assume it's also going to simulate physical key presses without us having to specifically program for that. I assume that's just built in. I mean, I would think so, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, good question though. I didn't think about that. You could try it and see what happens. So the last thing is just adding animation, which we're not going to do. Adding animation. Yeah, and so that's it. We're done. So let's test it. All right, I saved it. Let's see if I've messed anything up anywhere. So here we go. So okay, I'm going to need you guys' help now. So let's see if we can guess the word. Now, like I said, these are kind of hard, so let's see if we can get it. All right, so I have a kind of a standard guess that I usually start with. So we're going to guess plate. Ooh, got an E. Okay, send your guesses. Cheat code A, yeah. But see, we can't though. That's the thing. It's going to check. One of the checks that we built is going to see if it's a valid word in the word list. And if it isn't, it's not going to let us do it. So let's do that. Let's do A, E, I, O, U. Uh-oh, word not in list. Try again. It's not going to let us do it. But you see yellow. Well, yeah. So the yellow, I do, but because plate exists in the word list. But let's try audio. Good. Okay, let's do it. Oh, we got a couple more. So we've got D, E, and O. We know that those go somewhere. Okay. More guesses. What do we think? Why does it stop on the third? Oh, I'm sorry. For some reason, if I don't move my mouse, like I can see it, the color went all the way across for me. On my screen, the color went all the way across. But I see in my stream preview that it stopped. And that is so weird because that's not how it looks on my screen. That is bizarre. Like that delay, it didn't like, I have no words to describe that. That's so weird. There's no errors because it worked on my screen. On the screen that I see, it worked. In my stream preview, it stopped. That's bizarre. Well, but what's odd is as soon as I moved my mouse, then it finished loading. That was super weird. Yeah. Because if I don't want to do an inspect because it'll show me the right answer. So we don't want to see the right answer. We want to guess. We want to get it right. Okay, let's think. Drone. Okay, good. Yep, good. Nope. No takers there. It's a hard one. Let's do. I like to do the SH combo. We'll do let's see if we've used all the vowels, so I bet it's got to be an E here. That's probably the only option. Oh, I see. Yeah, I got to keep moving my cursor because it's not updating until I move my cursor. Yeah. I'm going to do SHE. We'll do sheds. Oh, man. This is a tough one. I don't know if we're going to get this. Again, I got to move the cursor to finish the formatting. So weird. Loved. All right, loved. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move the cursor. Oh, wow. 3 at once. Score. Jenna gets imaginary channel points. And my cat is here too. He says, good job. Okay. Oh man, can we get it? Can we pull it clutch? All right. We don't have any other clues. I don't know. I'm gonna say, okay. What do you guys think? What about MO? What about mode? Oh, hey, Florence got the same. Yeah, no, I said it first, Florence, before you hit enter. So if we lose, it's my fault. Yeah. All right. YOLO. Here we go. Oh, what was it? What do you guys think? Oh, it could be wow. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what it was. Joyed? Oh, that's bogus. Joyed is a bogus word. No way. I call foul. Rip. Joy. I know. Yeah, use it in a sentence, Wordle clone. That's right. All right. Let's do it again. All right, we gotta end on a good note here. We gotta get one. We're gonna beat the system. All right. So I usually start out with the plate as my first word. Okay, we got a T. That list needs some debugging. Yeah. Like I say, I mentioned earlier that I don't know where that list comes from, who built it, or how valid it is, or even what kind of words are in it. It's just the list that the tutorial suggests using. So yeah, it might be, there's probably other source lists out there that you might want to use. You need to pull the list. Yeah, pull the list from the New York Times. Absolutely. Yeah, I can usually get their Wordles. They make sense. So, okay, I'm going to do show. Okay, we got an S. Yeah, Ryan, that's right. This is something we would refactor or tweak to make it your own in practice. Yep. You could add your own word list and that kind of thing. Yeah, you could try to put in a difficulty level. That would be really cool. So I'm going to do... I want to do an R. I know E's not, or I know, well, no, it's not. Crisp. I'm going to do crisp. I know P's not valid, but crisp is a good word. Oh, trust. Yeah, we can do trust. Well, actually, we know that T is already in this position, so I wouldn't want to necessarily guess it again in another position. Quits. Oh, that's a good one, too. Yeah, let's do quits. I like that. Quits. Ooh, yeah, we got an I. Oh, yeah, we got the S. Jenna's on a roll. Crushing it. All right. So my brain is no longer working. Something TS with an I somewhere. Oh boy. I'm guessing the I is probably the second letter. I mean, maybe not the first, but I could be wrong. What about oh, sorry. I can't. Oh, hints. Okay. Oh, we know that actually no, I'm not going to guess hints because we've already seen that N and H are not valid. Yeah. GIFs. Okay. Good. That's a good guess. GIFs. Nice. Okay, I'm going to keep moving the cursor so that it actually does the formatting. Ooh, okay, so we got the I. We've got the I nailed. Nice. Mints. Yeah, that's, well, we know that N isn't valid. Stilt. S-T-I-L-T. No, that's too many letters. No, it's all good. Okay, so we've got two more to get. Two more letters. And these are, so the light gray ones down the bottom are our only choices. Dirts. Have we not used R yet? Yeah, we haven't. Okay, I don't know if that's a word, but I mean, heck, this list seems pretty fast and loose. So at least it'll tell us if the R is in it. Oof. Oh, that's rough. Oh, man. Oh, boy. Mitts? Could be. Yeah. I mean, an M is generally a pretty safe guess. Something with two T's. Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Oh, man. I feel like this list is doing me dirty. Tints. Well, there's no N. We already know there's not an N. So, we got to guess all fresh ones. So, I mean, mitts is a good option. Yep. Let's do it. Try that. I haven't. Oh, come on. Here we go. All right, here we go. Oh man, jeepers! I want to get one. Mists. Oh man, you were on the right. Oh yeah, no N. Blah. Dork. Yep. This is hard. Well, this one is harder than the New York Times version. I gotta say, I play the New York Times version every single day, and like this is way harder. All right, it was mists though. Okay, one more try. Come on, third time's a charm. We can do this. We got it. I believe in you. I believe in you. Third try. Third try. All right. I'm gonna do the SH combo right out the gate, along with an O and an end. Oh wait, hold on. We're gonna do that. SH and R are common letters. Get going. Yeah. All right. Okay. Good start. So an S and an H, hopefully together, maybe at the end of the word. We don't have any, so we want to try some vowels here. What if I could do something with like an E? Oh, sorry, gotta wiggle the cursor for the formatting. My bad. Fresh. Okay, sure. Fresh. Yeah. Let's do it. Fresh. Ooh, nice. I am sassy. Coming in hot there. Hey. Yeah. Brush. Yeah, that's a good one too. Let's try brush. Trash. Yeah, that too. We can try that one next if that doesn't work. We're gonna do brush and then trash. Oof. Okay. Okay. Trash. That's another good one. We're getting all the vowels in here. It's good. Ooh. Okay. I'm thinking. Oh, crash. Oh, Digital Fortress. Hey, first time chat. Nice. All right. I'm thinking, yeah, that's about what it has to be, right? I don't think there's any other options. Hey, Digital Fortress coming in hot with that first time chat. First try. All right. Let's do it. Crash. Yeah, that's really all it could be, I think. Watch it be something like Varash or something that's weird in this list. Guessed right. Woohoo, look at that. Guessed right. Game over. We won. Yeah, good job, Digital Fortress. And everybody else, too. Y'all were very methodical. We were very methodical this time. Pat Sajak would be so proud. Well played. Nice. Okay. Yeah, and then, you know, and then at the end, it highlights the entire thing green. So that makes us feel good, right? Okay, well, I am happy to end on a high note. Yeah, GG. Awesome. So I'm going to share one more time. I'm going to share the link for this tutorial. Just, I know it's up higher in the chat, but it's probably been, you know, obliterated by now with all the messages. And so I'm going to share the link again. Whoops. Ooh. I shared a little bit of JavaScript there accidentally. All right, hang on. Oh, thanks, Dev. Yeah, I'll look at that. Okay, so I just shared in chat. I shared the link to the tutorial if you want to try it yourself. I'm not going to share a code pen for this just because I don't feel like it's necessary since the tutorial walks you through the same thing. So I'm not going to bother with that. But there is a bug. Are you talking about the freezing issue with the mouse moving around? Yeah, that sounds like it. Yeah, I'll look at that after the stream. If you type in 2 of the same letter, it only highlights yellow. Okay, let's see what that means. Okay, this is our version. All right, it only highlights yellow. Oh, for the first one. Yeah, I think that's how the real game works too, actually. I mean, don't quote me on that. We can try it. Trees. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I don't know that that's unexpected behavior, but I mean, it is certainly that could be something we could you know, you could maybe correct for. I'm sure. You have to think about how to apply, you know, and not just stop at the first one it finds, you know, and check for additional instances of an index match there. Yeah. Or it could be too, potentially, that the correct guess. So we're just going to cheat here and we're going to look at the correct answer. We're going to see if that only has one E in it, then that's a valid statement that there is only one E, right? So let's see. Yeah, and that's what Rascal just said too. If there's only one E, you'd only expect one to be highlighted yellow because you only get one hit. But we're gonna cheat. We're gonna look at the correct answer. What the heck is that? What is that? What is with this? So, but yes, that does. What? Yeah. So that does then, you know, bear this out that there's only one E, so only one E gets highlighted yellow. Yeah. Glad we didn't play this round. Jeepers creepers. This word list is brutal. Yeah, I would suggest maybe, I'm sure there's better word lists out there that you could link to instead. I would say that maybe get one of those. Yeah, or write your own. I mean, heck, doesn't matter. You could write, it would be fun to maybe write a Wordle game that's based on like a franchise or something that you enjoy, like a video game or something, with vocab from that. That would be kind of cool. Someone turned the NDN into a word list. Star Wars, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, or anything like that. Anything that you enjoy. You can make your own word list and use it as the source. That would be fun. You could format this so it's like, you know, has a themed background and change the letter colors so that they fit the theme. That would be really fun. Change the font. Yeah. You can spark a little bit of creativity out of this. I'm feeling it. Ruche, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Ruche is an actual word. Okay. And yeah, Jenna got it. Yeah, that's a closing feature. Yeah. Yep. I didn't understand what you said at the first there, Jenna, but I get it now. You actually recognize the word. Wow, way to go. vocab champion right here. A frill or pleat of fabric as decoration on a garment or home furnishing. Okay. Well, I learned something. If you learned nothing else today, you have learned what a ruche is. There you go. Delete the word list and upload the GitHub, and as people, people could contribute their own words. Sure. Yeah, if you wanted to do that, community source. Although you'd have to be careful that you didn't get any, bad apples in there uploading naughty words for fun. That's one thing you want to control for. You could also put a filter word list in your code to filter out naughty words so they won't get chosen, but just a thought. Yeah. Okay. So I think we're good here. We had a fun time tonight, and I thank you all from just accept all the submissions. Nothing could go wrong with that. Yeah, of course. When have people on the internet ever tried to do anything naughty? Yeah. Does anybody have it's a Mitch Rouget? Yes. Yeah. Does anybody have any additional questions before we end for the evening here? And again, the VOD will be available on my channel immediately. It probably already is. You can watch it anytime. And oh yeah, good job, Yomi. Yay. Okay. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad y'all had fun. I thought, this would be a fun little break from all the homework and show us how to do some practical applications. So yeah, I hope everybody has a good rest of your evening and a great start to the week. And if there's no other questions, I will see you guys all on Wednesday. And I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing on Wednesday, but we'll probably be going over some of the homework that was due the day prior, which will be on Tuesday. So yeah, and feel free, Rascal, if you're Rascal's doing some maybe a little bit of code review on one of the voice channels, feel free to jump in there for a little extra practice. Am I streaming every Sunday? If you look on my Twitch channel, you can see my schedule. I have my schedule built out on my channel. There's a schedule tab. So usually I'm every Wednesday and Sunday. And the streams, I have them blocked out for like 2 or 3 hours, but as my frequent viewers know, the streams are going to go as long as they go. We're not cutting things off just because the schedule says we should be done. We're in it to win it. So we don't get got, we go get, and sometimes getting involves, 4 hours, but that's why we have VODs, right? So check out my schedule. I also notify on Twitter. So if you're not following me on Twitter, follow me under @MayanWolf. Same as my Twitch name, same as my Discord name. Follow me on Twitter. I'll announce the topic of the stream on Twitter and any other details that you might need to know. The stream was tough but fun for sure. Good. I'm glad you had fun. Yep. Let's raid. Yeah, we might start doing raids eventually. I'm just not familiar enough with all the different Twitch functions yet to do that. But I will say, just as the last thing before we go here, thanks to everybody who's participated in all my streams so far. I am one stream away from reaching affiliate status, which is just wild. I cannot believe it. I need one more stream, which will be on Wednesday, and I'll be an affiliate. So y'all will start getting custom emotes. If I can set up some custom emotes, you'll start getting channel points, all the good stuff. So yeah, it's wild. I can't, I've had this is like my, I don't know, how many streams have I had? Like 6, not that many. I'm already almost at affiliate status. So that's all thanks to you guys. Yep. All right. With that being said, I hope you have a good evening. Feel free to reach out to me, Twitter, Discord. If you have any extra, clients that need a website, feel free to send them my way. But yeah, talk to you again soon. Talk to you in a few days. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.